Harbaugh.
Yes.
In all his Michigan glory. So here we are today, Tuesday. The Rams have fired their head coach, Jeff Fisher. Now, Jeff Fisher's a made man. The NFL will make up a job, and much like Tom Coughlin, he'll be the advisor to some football operational thing here pretty quick. But it had to happen. So the question now is, who's the Rams coach? Is the Rams job a great job? What happens to Jim Harbaugh? So I thought I'd just start the show today laying out the 6 people who I think I would hire as the head coach. And then after I say their name, I'll give you the likelihood. 1, no chance. 10, they would take the job tomorrow. My number 1 choice would be Jim Harbaugh. I think the likelihood of Jim Harbaugh taking the job is 3 or less. First of all, his job is unfinished at Michigan. He went to Michigan. That doesn't mean he won't leave, because I think eventually he will, and he'll wear people out. But his job is not completed, and there's too many family ties and traditional ties to sting Michigan. If he's there 2 more years, wins a title, rebuilds it, beats Ohio State a couple times, he's young, he could walk. The job's unfinished. I think family and tradition matter to the Harbaugh family. 1 through 10, 10 being the likelihood he would take the job. I say the likelihood is 3 or less, even if they offered him $15 million. The second person I would offer the job to, because I don't think Harbaugh would take it, is Sean Payton of the Saints. I think his likelihood is closer to 50-50, maybe slightly less, but 5 out of a 10. Drew Brees is getting old. In the last couple of weeks, Drew Brees has not, at the end of this season, looked like a guy you want to build around or can hang around much longer. Sean's got enough of a will, of an interest in coaching for the next 15 years. He would be an offensive coach in a city that has right now a defensive, boring staff with the Rams. I think he would be an unbelievable fit. I think he's a more realistic fit than Jim Harbaugh that won't take the job. Sean Payton, though, is deeply connected to the New Orleans community. Will that play a role? I think it plays the key role. I think he could ditch that owner tomorrow. I think he'd move off Drew Brees tomorrow. Sean Payton has a daughter who goes to school. I'm not going to give you the university, but has a daughter that goes to a university out here in California, about an hour away from where he'd coach, where his offices would be. I would do Jim Harbaugh 1, Sean Payton 2. I think John Gruden is the third call I would make. Now, that may seem unrealistic. I do think the likelihood he would take it, I'm told 8 million is the magic number, is about 6 to a 6.5 out of 10, which is double Harbaugh and slightly more than Sean Payton. Here's the story about John Gruden, and I heard this a month ago, and I said it on the air. There's a magic number for him. It's $8 million. He's the highest-paid ESPN employee. ESPN's having some payroll cutbacks. Nobody's quite sure if they'd pay that again. He lost his partner, Mike Tirico. He has Sean McDonough. They do a fine job. But Monday Night Football, frankly, and this is nobody's fault, the profile shrunk. The biggest games now are the Sunday night game on NBC and the Fox late game. Then you have the CBS afternoon game with Brady or a Big Ben. Then you have that early 1 o'clock window. And Thursday games now feel as big or bigger than Monday Night Football. The profile of that assignment has shrunk. So does he want to stay in Tampa, get rich, pay no state tax, and be the guy in the 6th biggest NFL game? I think Gruden would listen. I'm told he would listen. He's an offensive guy. He won both at Oakland with a dysfunctional Al Davis, and he won in Tampa with a defensive team. He really inherited a defense and had to build an offense, but even his last couple of years, he was above 500. Then you get into guys, 3 people that I think are more likely to take the job if it's offered, and I like all of them. Josh McDaniels, out of a 10, the likelihood he'd take it's 9.5. There is some loyalty with Bill Belichick, and he has failed in Denver. He is the coordinator for Brady. He has a super high football IQ. He's an offensive guy. He would inherit a defense, not his specialty, and a number 1 pick, Jared Goff, who has some similarities in style and size and arm strength to Tom Brady. Then there's 2 people. This could be a combo deal. Kyle Shanahan would take the job if offered. He's the offensive coordinator at Atlanta. Mike Shanahan, his respected father, would also, I think, take it if offered. They could come as a combo deal. And I think the Shanahans combined would be a high enough profile pairing to take the job. So there I go. Harbaugh, Peyton Gruden, Josh McDaniels, Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan. Harbaugh would be my number one choice. But Jim Harbaugh, right now in America, I mean, you're seeing the job Lane Kiffin took. You saw the job Charlie Strong took. Okay, not a lot of great jobs out there, and coaches generally take whatever they can get. Jim Harbaugh would be the number one candidate right now in the NFL for virtually any job that came open. He could have any of them. So is Los Angeles and the Rams big enough for him? I don't know. I don't know right now. I don't think Harbaugh's going to take it. And I don't buy into this. He went to Michigan. He'll never leave. Oh, be quiet. College fans are so parochial. He'd leave eventually. Nick Saban would leave Alabama if he was 48, not 65. The reality, though, the job's not done for Harbaugh. I'm told he is currently not interested whatsoever in the Rams job. That's what I've been told. He makes $9 million at Michigan. And remember, it used to be that the NFL jobs were way better than college jobs. The quality of life was better in college. You didn't have to deal with a GM and an owner. And, you know, the NFL's kind of more of a grind. It's tough on wives. But now that college football pays what it pays and the quality of life is better, Harbaugh's making $9 million. Jack Del Rio with the Raiders only makes $3.5 million. So now that the money of college often surpasses NFL jobs, 25 college coaches make more than Jack Del Rio, 25. So the quality of life's better in college. You don't have to deal with a general manager in college. And now the money often surpasses the NFL. These college jobs for these Sabans and these Harbaughs and these David Shaws and these Chris Petersons at Washington, Urban Meyer at Ohio State, in their eyes, and I get it, especially when you have young kids. Jim Harbaugh's got young kids. The college job he can control, get home and have dinner once in a while. So I think there's no chance he takes the job. But he would be my number one pick. There's a bunch of other names. Nick Saban, too old. Schiano, not big enough. David Shaw's happy at Stanford. Urban Meyer, happy at Ohio State. Norv Turner, I think I'd pass there. Tom Coughlin, again, seems like his best days are behind him. I wouldn't have a problem hiring Norv Turner on my staff, but I think if you kind of look at the Minnesota situation, the San Diego situation, I don't think it would play in Los Angeles. The second thing I wanted to talk about, since we spent so much time there on Jim Harbaugh, is John Harbaugh, his brother. My wife got very confused last night. We're talking football, and a friend comes over and starts talking about Harbaugh, and she didn't know there was a John Harbaugh, and we were talking Jim Harbaugh, and then we were talking John Harbaugh in Baltimore. My wife was just lost. There's another Harbaugh? I said, it's John, not Jim, and he's in Baltimore, not in Michigan. Which one's in the pros? It's John. Wasn't Jim in the pros. Now he's in college. Very confusing moment at my house last night. But let me say this. On a day we're talking about how great Jim Harbaugh is, let me just throw something out to you. Is John Harbaugh, his brother, becoming the Jeff Fisher of the East Coast? I think John Harbaugh's in trouble. If he doesn't make the playoffs this year, that's a pretty good roster. Best kicker in the game, defensive studs, impatient owner, top GM, good scouting department. He doesn't make the playoffs 3 out of 4 years, no playoffs. With the Super Bowl MVP. And John Harbaugh, like Jeff Fisher, his expertise is not offense. It's special teams. And last night, his special teams once again were great, and the only thing that kept that game from being lopsided. But when you watch that football game, and you watch Baltimore, they're a more talented version of the Rams. They have Flacco. They draft defense, they scheme defense, they acquire defense, they coach defense very well. But Baltimore's number one offensive threat is a 37-year-old wide receiver with one Achilles. And if not for 2 special teams play, and that's John Harbaugh's strength, that game's not close. When I watched that game last night, offensive scheming and offensive coaching mismatch. It does feel, and much like Jeff Fisher, John Harbaugh can't figure out the offensive coordinator position. Remember, these guys who are not offensive experts and they don't have a history in offense don't hang around offensive guys. They don't know the industry. Okay, Jeff Fisher's last 2 offensive coordinator hires have been abysmal. Harbaugh's had 5 in 4 years. John Harbaugh doesn't know offense. Jeff Fisher doesn't know offense. With Joe Flacco, I mean, all the things they do well are not offense. And I listen, On a day we're talking about how great Jim Harbaugh is, I think John Harbaugh's in trouble. Because I look at that team right now, and last night might have sealed their fate. And I don't think this ownership group is going to be happy again. And Ozzie Newsome and this scouting department, one of the best, they have largely mimicked the New England culture. New England's worst year in 15 has been 9-7. Baltimore, once again, disappointing at the end of the year with a Super Bowl MVP at quarterback. They don't draft offense that great. They don't scheme it that great. They don't develop it very well. I mean, that game last night, if not for two special teams plays, that game isn't even competitive. I think John Harbaugh he and Jeff Fisher have more in common than anybody wants to acknowledge. Because that team is better than that record and that result and that offense. I'm sorry, it's better. I mean, their points per game rank middle of the pack. Their yards per game is 15th. Come on now. You have a legit quarterback. We always blame Flacco. Flacco's proven he can carry a team on his shoulders to a Super Bowl. He's proven that. We got a lot today, obviously. The Harbaugh thing, and I don't think he would take the Rams job because I don't think it's a good enough job for him. I talked about this yesterday. I don't know why people aren't more patient. Charlie Strong rushed into a job. Lane Kiffin rushed into a job. But Lane Kiffin held a press conference this morning, and I've got one big takeaway on that puppy. One big takeaway on that puppy and what it connects to Alabama and Lane Kiffin and coaching. That's around the corner. Takes a lot of time and effort to break out the old rusty ladder. Trusty staple gun and go to town stringing those Christmas lights. But don't let your chaotic schedule stop you from enjoying some holiday bliss. 1-800-Flowers.com right now has the holiday flower tree. Elegantly designed, fragrant greenery, roses, carnations. It's got a red bow on top. Beautiful, one-of-a-kind gift. 20% off right now, the 1-800-Flowers holiday flower tree. To order it, 20% off. All you do, and you know how to do this, 1-800-Flowers.com. Do it from your desktop. Just watch. Model, amazing dancer.
Model.
She looks like a model.
She's a very great fighter.
And a
strong woman.
Human.
She's a strong woman. She has a fight coming up that we're looking forward to. I heard she also said she might fight Ronda Rousey if she's given the chance.
Whatever. It's time for Visa checkout deals that click. $20 off when you spend $100 or more at StubHub.com. All you have to do is make sure you pay with Visa checkout. Use the discount code Visa checkout. All I'm saying is you need to watch that interview. So Lane Kiffin, and this is something I talked about yesterday. I've never understood this. Coaches rush back into jobs. Charlie Strong, they rushed into a job. Take a deep breath. Chip Kelly rushed into a job. Here's the story with Lane Kiffin. And I know enough people that know Lane, that Lane Kiffin felt like after 3 years at Alabama, Lane wasn't getting any offers. And the reason he wasn't getting any offers, because when reference calls were made to Tennessee, they dogged him. And when reference calls were made to USC, they dogged him. They said he's unhireable. And so the job that he really wants is to be a coach at Tennessee or a USC. And the stepping stone jobs like Houston now aren't willing to hire him. And he doesn't really want that job. He doesn't want Florida Atlantic. What he wants to do is be a big-time coach at a big-time school. That's how he sees himself, but it's not available right now. Both USC, according to sources this morning, and Tennessee dogged him hard. Add that with the divorce and some things in his personal life, and it's a very small community in college football. Everybody knows everybody. 4 agents, 3 agents control the whole business. His reputation's not great right now. Here's what's really interesting. I don't know Lane particularly well, but I know him better than most. The knock on Lane has always been, from his personal picadillos to he's kind of selfish. Lane's into Lane. If you think Lane's going to take this job, knowing that this is his last shot, I mean, if it doesn't work here for Lane, and he wakes up in the morning and it's football. He goes to bed at night, it is football. If Lane Kiffin's going to take this job, and this is a bad program. Good facilities. You're in Florida. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have players. They got to play, I think, Wisconsin next year, and Oklahoma the year after, and Ohio State the year after. And you think he's going to have his total mind on Alabama, good luck. Good luck with that. If I was Lane Kiffin, and I've been selfish in my career, and this was my last chance, I'd be taking care of me. Nick Saban would be fine without me. Alabama's going to be fine without me. The idea that Lane is going to kind of, occasionally call recruits, and he's not going to be totally focused at Alabama. Now, Alabama may not need that focus because I think this Alabama team's the best one Nick Saban's had. I think they're more athletic at quarterback. I think their front seven's remarkable. And their system right now is so good. They're even good at wide receiver. Generally, they've been okay at wide receiver, maybe one good receiver. They're just loaded. And they're just, frankly, in the SEC, which is a bunch of bad coaching. It's not even competitive anymore in that conference for them. Their best competition is going to come from Clemson. Their best competition is going to come from Ohio State. I think their best competition could come from a Washington because I think, at least with those schools, you'll face an elite coach and some NFL players. Right now, the coaching in the SEC is embarrassing. It's the worst it's ever been. So that's the story on Lane Kiffin. He don't want this job. This job's going to get him back, and his reputation's hurt him. But I think this is it for Lane. He's a young guy. He is going to be completely distracted. I don't care what Saban says or thinks. He's going to be completely distracted doing dual roles here. The second thing I want to talk about is, listen, we know this to be true, that Belichick's sort of ahead of everybody in the NFL. He's like a step ahead of everybody. Sort of like Saban, the step ahead of everybody in college football. Nobody would have risked Lane Kiffin. Saban went out and hired Lane Kiffin. And, some guys are just ahead of the curve. Belichick's ahead of the curve. I want to throw this out to you. Is that right now, if you look at the AFC playoff picture, New England's in. Kansas City, Oakland are in. Of the 6 teams, 3 are in. Kansas City, Oakland, and New England. Then it's a bunch of Houston's, Tennessee's, Pittsburgh's, Baltimore's, and Miami. Okay, so we know 3 teams are in. The Patriots are in, and the Raiders are going to make it in as a wild card or a division leader, but they're at 10 wins, and they're going to win a couple of their last games. Just throw this out there. New England came in totally energized to beat Baltimore last night, a team that's given them trouble, that has essentially the same culture and the same system. So New England plays as well as they have played. I mean, Brady was as good as he has been in a long time. 400 yards, 7.6 yards a throw. If not for special teams gaffes, they'd have blown out Baltimore. And Dallas couldn't blow out Baltimore. Baltimore's not a team you blow out like that. Do you think Bill Belichick is thinking, in a couple of weeks, the Miami Dolphins are now in a backup quarterback? Would Bill Belichick in week 17 mail it in against Miami to get him into the playoffs? Because the Dolphins' remaining schedule, Jets, Bills. Now, they have a backup quarterback, but I think they're good enough to split those games. That would make the 8-5 Dolphins the 9-6 Dolphins. They beat the Patriots 10-6, they're in. Belichick wants to play Miami a lot more than he wants to have to play a Baltimore again. Especially when you really dominated them the first time. Baltimore has a history of going to Foxborough in cold weather. They play well in cold. Miami doesn't play well in cold. I think it's very interesting. If you're Belichick, are you sitting there and are you thinking to yourself, I'm not going to risk Brady. I've already beaten Baltimore once. If Miami can split the next 2 weekends and then New England goes down to Miami, you play reserves. You hide the playbook, you rest Tom Brady, and you give Miami the W. You don't advertise it to the league, but it inserts Miami as a wild card team and not the Baltimore Ravens or potentially another team that's giving you trouble, the Denver Broncos. Just stuff to chew on. Belichick thinks of everything. I can assure you, he'd rather face Miami than he would face a Baltimore or a Denver and a Gary Kubiak and a John Harbaugh and a Flacco and an Elway in that defense. You'd love to face warm weather Miami and Foxborough, potentially a backup quarterback. If Miami splits the next 2 weekends, New England mails in that week 17. 10-6 Miami gets in.
He would never do that. There was a situation, I forget exactly what year it was and what team, but where this exact scenario came up and people were saying maybe they should lose on purpose. Okay. They did not do that.
Okay.
Could you see Bill Belichick telling his players to just lay off?
You don't have to tell them anything. You just have a very average...
badly?
No, you don't coach badly. You put in a very conservative game plan. You don't tell anybody that. Guys, we gave it our best. We lost 17-13. Offense didn't click today.
No way.
Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
There's been a lot of talk now that Rex Ryan could potentially get fired during the season, maybe right after the season. And Rex Ryan was asked about this. He's not denying that at all. And here he is on what his approach is going to be for the rest of the season.
I really don't know what to feel. I'm just, I've been in this game a long time. And I know one thing, to do the very best job that I can do, I have to focus on what's right in front of me. And that's the Cleveland Browns. And I promise you that's exactly what I'm going to do.
If I were him, I would just be so ready to get into TV, make that jump, and just not deal with this stuff anymore, because it feels like every single season there's talk about him getting fired. Doesn't that get old?
Yeah, I think he's a football guy. He's a football family. Dad was a coach. Probably the grandfather was a coach. Rex Ryan's a football coach. I think he'd be very good at TV. I mean, if I was a network executive here and Rex Ryan was available, I'd hire Rex Ryan tomorrow. I think he'd be a great NFL analyst. I would hire him tomorrow at this network.
He's funny.
He's funny. He's a handsome guy, and he's kind of glib. And I think Rex Ryan has a chance to be a really big TV star. I really do.
Okay. Rams Executive VP of Football Operations and COO Kevin Demoff is saying that the firing of Jeff Fisher is not the only issue within the organization.
It's unfortunate for him today because this is an organizational failure. And I think when you stand up here, anytime you let a head coach go, we all have to take a look in the mirror. We have to improve across the board, from personnel to operations to everything. That's what we told the staff today. But collectively as the Rams, we need to get better moving forward, and that process really begins today.
So, to me, this kind of sounds like they're letting Jeff Fisher fall on the sword for them. Aren't there some other people who should get fired?
Yeah, they're going to do a lot of house cleaning. Bring the maids over.
They should.
They're going to.
That makes me kind of feel bad for Jeff Fisher.
Not at all. He had his run. I don't feel bad for a wide receiver that drops 8 passes. I mean, you if you're a coach and you have 5 straight losing seasons and you can't draft any good offensive linemen, though you draft 10, my sympathy's out the door.
What about the reports that he got fired largely in part to the Eric Dickerson situation? I don't think that's good.
He made the call. He created it. No sympathy.
And finally, the Rams apparently have on their wish list, this is according to reports that have talked to many sources within the organization, that the Rams would like Pete Carroll to be their next head coach. And I remember back when we didn't have an NFL team in LA, I always said that it wouldn't work because USC is LA's football team. So maybe the Rams are trying to create USC of the NFL and get Pete Carroll, and maybe they could bring in Reggie Bush.
Yeah, it's very rare that the NFL is not a fan of a coach leaving an organization to go to another organization when that organization likes him. Like Paul Allen likes him, John Snyder. I think the Billionaire Boys Club, that doesn't sit well with the league. They don't like you bouncing around in division, especially, I mean, and for the record, Pete loves L.A. I mean, Pete's got a place in Hawaii.
Right.
Pete loves the warm weather. Like Pete, I heard he sold his home in Seattle a couple years ago. Pete's one of those guys. He would be great in L.A. They still cheer him wildly, but I think he's happy. I think the Seattle situation's great for him, and I don't think the league would love this, and I think the league would call Stan Kroenke and say, Stan, keep your hands off him.
Okay.
Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
By the way, here was Cris Carter a few weeks ago talking about the Rams mishandling the Jared Goff pick. This was from a couple of weeks ago in the Herd.
All the good players are playing. All right? That's how I know he can't play. Like, when is Goff when are the cookies going to be ready? When the stadium's ready? I mean, my goodness, like, I need the cookies now. I'm in L.A. I don't care if he completes 50% of his passes. He'll get better in the game than he will sitting on that sideline. The guys know he can't play. They see him in practice. They know he can't play. They messed this pick up, Colin. No one wants to say it.
Let's bring him on. He's our new NFL analyst at FS1, the Hall of Famer, 8-time Pro Bowler Cris Carter, who looks very profound today. So now, first of all, let's start with Jeff Fisher. Surprised it happened midseason?
No. I mean, I thought they were going to fire him. I mean, eventually, when you're in a rare profession like head coach of NFL team, you're judged on a few things. Number one is wins and losses, divisional titles, championships. Number 2 is development of players. How many players can you develop? All-star players, Hall of Fame players, attendance, how much buzz is around the team.
Sure.
And he hasn't done any of those things. So he's failed in a lot of those areas. So, no, I'm not surprised at all.
Jared Goff, you look rather accurate.
Well, it's not a matter of me being right. When you draft a player, the first pick in the draft, you're dominating the draft. You control the whole draft. And then you get a player and you say for 2 months, he's not ready to play. Well, why isn't he ready to play? Was he in some bad offense in Cal that doesn't transfer over? Or did we make a mistake? And most coaches, most general managers, they're not into admitting I made a mistake.
Right.
So that's what I saw in Jared Goff. He should have been playing. That's the reason Carson Wentz in Philadelphia, that's why they traded Sam Bradford. Because they saw that he could play. They saw there would be some bumps in the road, but he is our franchise quarterback, and they realized that a lot long before the Rams did.
So, Cris Carter joining us. Now there are a series of people. I said this years ago, NFL was the best job. The quality of life was a college coach. You could control college. But now these college guys, there are 25 coaches in college make more than Jack Del Rio. Harbaugh's making 9. Do you think there's any way Jim Harbaugh would leave Michigan?
Well, trying to say I know how Jim Harbaugh was thinking, I think that's a stretch. But I don't want to see him leave Michigan. I mean, he is the right name, the right kind of coach for a place like Michigan. Just like Nick Saban, just like Urban Meyer. And being a Buckeye, I want Michigan to be really good. Like they were this year. Yeah. I want them to be really good and for us to be able to beat them. I think it's better for the Big Ten because it's not only about institutions, it's about coaches.
I agree.
And that's one of the reasons why the Big Ten has surpassed the other conferences as far as the best conference for college football.
Oh, you're totally right on this. So I'm going to throw to you, Cris Carter, the people I put at the top of the board. We've talked Harbaugh. I think Sean Payton I would give a call to. Your thoughts?
I like Sean Payton. I think that a couple years ago there might have been an opportunity because they weren't jumping at giving him an extension. Drew Brees is late in his career. He's won a Super Bowl. I could see Sean Payton taking over a franchise. And I believe that the Rams, they need a dynamic, not only a coach with head coaching experience, but they need a personality.
Yes.
That they can drum up some enthusiasm
Good point.
about football being here in L.A.
Well, the team has no identity. Sean himself brings an identity. How about John Gruden? You know John.
I like John Gruden. I think John Gruden would definitely be on the list of people at the top 1, 2, or 3 as far as people I call.
So you know John. Listen, Monday Night Football, and this is, I'm not blaming anybody, but the profile of it, Thursday night game, flex scheduling, the Fox games, the profile has been shrinking for several years. His buddy Mike Tirico leaves. Again, Sean McDonough does a terrific job. John can stay in Tampa and make a lot of money and get rich and do quarterback camp in the draft.
Right.
Or he can be relevant again, and he is a coach, and he's a darn good coach, and his brother now is having some success. What's the possibility?
Well, I think there's probably a great possibility. And the reason why is because life is about trying to find something that you have a skill set that you do well. And John Gruden, he's one of the more talented people. He has 2 things. He is a very good broadcaster.
Yes.
But I watched him last night in the booth. His animation, him doing the Brady and being pliable, all that's not an announcer. That's a football coach who's announcing. He's hit the jackpot. He's one of the best in the business. But at the end of the day, you don't win or lose when you're in the booth. As a coach, you got more stake in the game and you got a chance to win. And I think his ability to be able to turn the franchise around, I don't know how excited he'll be about golf because he might be stuck with golf. But John Gruden would be in my top 3 people that I would call.
So, let's shift gears. I was saying this. In any business, you have to pivot because, it's so fluid now. I mean, God, in my business, they didn't even have podcasts 10 years ago. Now podcasts taking over the world.
Yeah, you and I have a great understanding of that. You got to pivot quick.
You got to pivot quick. You're at a place, you're not at a place, need a new place. So I look at John Harbaugh, and everybody always loved John Harbaugh, special teams guy. But he's got a little Jeff Fisher. They don't draft offense well. They don't scheme it particularly well. And that's a good organization. We got a really good GM. We got a really good scouting department. They kind of are New England in culturally, the way they scout, the way they prepare. Is John Harbaugh, we love Jim today, but is John struggling with the pivot the league made to offense like Jeff Fisher, and their best offensive weapon now is a 37-year-old receiver with one Achilles? You watched that game last night. If not for special teams, that's not competitive.
Right.
That game's not competitive. What do you make of John Harbaugh's situation?
Well, I think John's a very good football coach.
You do.
And I think he's a very good football coach. A couple years ago, I was the captain for the Pro Bowl, myself and Michael Irvin. And Harbaugh was the coach I selected. All I had to do was show up on the bus and read my itinerary. He did everything. And not from a control standpoint, but from an organization and his overall leadership, his understanding of games, players, and situations. I believe he's a fabulous coach, and it's taken him all this time to get Baltimore in the situation from drafting, the type of players, free agency. He's got control of that organization. And to be able to get that, it takes a long, long time. So I think he's one of the elite coaches in the NFL.
Okay, so you're with him.
Yes.
You feel like him like I do about Andy Reid.
Oh, Andy Reid is magnificent.
I think he's magnificent.
I mean, he's magnificent. Harbaugh's got the Super Bowl, though.
Right.
Okay? Andy has a great reputation. He's a great coach, but he didn't have that Super Bowl.
It's like you in the Hall of Fame. There's like 300 guys on the planet. It's just a different thing.
Yeah, it's called the Hall of Fame. It ain't called the Hall of the Very Good.
That's right. Exactly. Cris Carter joining us, 8-time Pro Bowler, Hall of Famer, now a new FS1 NFL analyst. You know, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the Patriots. In the NBA, you can have a dynasty because you don't deal with the injuries. Football's a violent game. The football dynasty in New England started pre-Facebook, pre-YouTube. The iPods come and gone. Let's forget NBA because, Tim Duncan's not getting hurt like Gronk every other year. I'm watching New England last night. They lead the league in fumbles. Can't get to the quarterback. Gronk is out. They're depending on a rookie for a deep threat. You're a Hall of Fame wide receiver. Okay. So I'm looking at that team and I'm thinking, Brady, Belichick, I don't know, Chris, but Montana, his reign was 9 years. We're on 15 now.
Yes.
Is this the greatest dynasty in the NFL you've ever seen? Now remember, dynasty, we have salary caps. They can't be the Steelers in 75.
I think the word dynasty, we're going to have a hard time, and as far as I've seen, because I've seen the Pittsburgh Steelers in the late 70s. I've seen the San Francisco 49ers and got bludgeoned by them. The Dallas Cowboys, Michael Irvin, and the triplets. So those were true dynasties in my era. So as far as them being the most dominant, no, I don't think they're the most dominant because they did the most with the least personnel.
The Patriots.
Yes, they're not going to have a whole bunch of Hall of Famers in this 12 to 15 year run that Brady's on. I mean, you can name the Hall of Famers they have on one hand compared to Pittsburgh dynasty. Oh man, there's Hall of Famers all up and down the roster. San Francisco, Hall of Famers up and down the roster. Dallas, Hall of Famers all up and down the roster. So the constant is Belichick and Brady. But Robert Kraft has figured out something. When he was sitting watching horrible football in those bleachers in Foxborough as a season ticket holder, I'm going to buy this team one day, and I'm going to change it. So he knows what he knows, but he knows what he doesn't know. And that's where Belichick comes in. They are a modern-day dynasty, not the most dominant dynasty I've seen in my lifetime.
Yeah, we have a different world where the salary cap and player mobility makes it virtually impossible to maintain the top players on your roster year after year. This feels like the most Brady Belichick-driven team ever. Like, who's their third best player?
Well, the one thing that Belichick has done, he's been able to manage the salary cap and get players at the price he wants to pay for them. So then when injuries hit, he can get replacements because he's not paying the premium for all the players. I mean, if you look at Patriots players that are in the top 5 paid at their position, there's none. Maybe the kicker, but there's none. Brady's not in top 5 quarterbacks, and he's the star. Belichick's making a lot of money, but the rest of the people, you get a hometown discount. I mean, he makes them take a hometown discount. Yeah. So that has allowed him to sustain a roster that makes players more replaceable than other systems that we see in the NFL.
Congrats. So glad to have you here, man.
Thank you, man.
Cris Carter. When shopping for car insurance, consider Geico. 75 years they've been doing it. Listen, it's simple. You want to save money, go to geico.com. In LA, it's the Herd. Here are the quarterbacks that struggled from Thursday until last night. And I mean struggled. Derek Carr, Big Ben, Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, Andrew Luck, Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning, Matt Stafford, Cam Newton, and Marcus Mariota. And Dak Prescott. They all struggled. Translation, it's really, really hard to play quarterback in the NFL. And post-Thanksgiving, it gets harder. You know, I'm watching Odell Beckham, and he reminds me a little of Dion, is that there's just a different level of speed.
He's the most exciting guy in the league with the ball in his hands. And he caught the slam. When he caught it and nobody put a hand on him, I said he's gone. He has a different gear with the ball in his hands than when he's actually running. And that's scary.
Michigan football, Dallas Cowboys, Lakers, Celtics, Yankees. You're in one of these 8 kind of all-time brands where you could win 28-3, losing a buzzer beater to Duke in the Sweet 16, and the people say, oh, Calipari, what an average year. Isn't there ever a point when you get frustrated with that?
No, because what I've been able to do here is make it more than that to me. And it's your happiness is your own happiness. What I hope our fans, they look at how we're doing this and say, you know what, I like what's happening. I think for any program, any sports team, you want to be in the hunt every year. It doesn't guarantee. You don't just write a story and it happens. But the bigger thing for us, how are these kids improving? It is about how are we helping these kids get better? How are we setting them up for the rest of their lives?
Welcome back. Loaded up today, Eric Dickerson. Bruce Feldman's going to stop by in studio on the Harbaugh stuff and the Lane Kiffin stuff. Loaded today. The John Gruden situation is very interesting. Chris Carter knows John Gruden very well. I was told John Gruden, the figure was $8 million. I was told this a month ago. I'm not sure. Did I tell you that, John, or Christine? Did I tell you that?
You told the world that.
Did I tell the guy? I'm not sure. Sometimes I confuse what I say off the air and what I say on the air.
Yesterday.
And since I'm on the air most of the time, but I had been told about a month ago that the USC situation, about 2 months ago, it was kind of untenable. It was not in a good spot. That Gruden had said he liked California, and those were high-profile jobs. He's obviously an NFL head coach first. I'm not sure if Gruden would be entirely interested. I just think Jim Harbaugh is virtually no chance. I mean, like 1% would take the job. Now, I will say this. Jim Harbaugh is not going to end his career at Michigan. He's too good of a football coach. Nick Saban would have left Alabama, but he's in his mid-60s, and his wife didn't like the NFL schedule. You're talking Jim's got a young, beautiful wife. He's got young kids. He's going to stay in Michigan a while, but he liked coaching at Stanford. He liked coaching at San Diego. Harbaugh likes California. I've been told that by various people. He loved the California lifestyle. He didn't want to leave San Francisco, and the only reason he left Stanford is because he could get the San Francisco job. He really likes the West Coast, even though he's a Midwest guy. Here's just a couple of teams I'll throw out there. The number one place I've been told for Harbaugh is the Indianapolis Colts and Andrew Luck. He would take the phone call. I think preferably in 2 more years at Michigan. And then there's Tennessee with Mariota. There's Arizona. Bruce Arians is 64 with health issues. I've been told he has thrown his name out there to TV networks. I think the Bears. He played with Chicago. He feels like Chicago. I think he'd be a great fit with Chicago. I think if Doug Peterson got bounced with Carson Wentz, he'd probably take a phone call. Throw the Chargers out there. They're going to move to L.A. Again, I think that would be very appealing. And if Jason Garrett and the Cowboys can't win a playoff game with Dez and this offensive line and Ezekiel Elliott in 2 years, so the Colts are number one. I think he'd have to take a phone call. You're not going to get Andrew Luck. The college football is giving the NFL one quarterback a year, and they're never as talented as Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck is essentially carrying a franchise that can't draft. 5 years offensive line rebuild. It's still awful. They have a defensive coach. Their in-game moves aren't great. They've got no Pro Bowlers around him. So, but I don't think Harbaugh, I don't think the Rams is frankly in this moment terribly appealing. I don't think it's terribly appealing. It doesn't feel big enough. Not that it's not LA, but they're playing in a college stadium. I mean, Jim Harbaugh to the new stadium. Here's a perfect world. Here's the perfect world for Jim Harbaugh is that Pagano gets another year or two. And then Harbaugh wins a national title, 4 years at Michigan. Job feels more complete. Kids are a little older. And he moves close to Indianapolis and takes Andrew Luck last 8 years of his career. And then, like Pete Carroll, shows everybody, I deserve to be in an elite class of coaching. Harbaugh is ridiculously competitive. I mean, ridiculously competitive. Do you think he's going to sit with that San Francisco mess and be okay with it? The only 2 or 3 coaches I've ever met as competitive as Jim Harbaugh, and they're not as competitive, but they're close, are Pete Carroll. It ate at Pete Carroll. It ate at him. I got to get back to the NFL. I got to prove I'm an elite coach. Nick Saban's like that. He would have left, but he's too old. He's 65. Now, I think if I was Saban, I think Saban's a very young 64, 65. I would listen. I mean, you've proven everything you can prove, but I'm told his wife, Terry, loves the college lifestyle, likes the community, and she just doesn't want to go back to the grind of the NFL. And the way it works now, the NFL used to be, and really it still is a better job than college, but there's about 7 or 8 exceptions to college where it's now paying as much as the NFL. I mean, Harbaugh's making $9 million at Michigan. That's more than any NFL coach. That's more than Belichick. And he gets to choose his players, and if they play 12 games a year, he's a favorite in 11, sometimes 12. I mean, 2 years, he's 20-5 in college. He's done that with average to below average quarterbacks. In the NFL, you can't win games if you're bad at quarterback. In college, you can win national titles if you're not great at quarterback. I mean, think about that. Like, the NFL now is so quarterback driven, you struggle to win games if you don't have a B to a B plus quarterback. You can win a national title in college with an average quarterback, so you're not solely dependent on one position. And Harbaugh has won everywhere. He's 122, 51-1 as a head coach. He's won everywhere. He can name. There's not another coach in America, because I don't think most colleges would want Belichick kind of grumpiness. I think Jim Harbaugh is the #1 football coach in America. We don't know if Urban can win in the NFL. We know Jim can. We don't know if Belichick would be easy to deal with the college boosters and recruiting. We know Harbaugh can. Harbaugh's the #1 coaching candidate in America. The only other one I can put up there is Pete Carroll. Because Pete's proven he can do the recruiting in college and win, and he can win a Super Bowl in the NFL. But, I mean, Michigan fans are going to have to own this. You're going to be dealing with this every single year. That's the downside of dating the prettiest girl. Guys hit on her. You're going to have to deal with this at Michigan every single This is The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Christine Leahy and I just had a big disagreement. So Brady last night is chewing his receiver's ear off.
Yeah.
And you start looking at sports, Harbaugh yells, Saban yells, Popovich yells, Krzyzewski yells, Calipari yells, Urban Meyer yells. Calipari was on our show yesterday, and he's like, yeah, I have to chew on my players. Like, nobody wants to be yelled at, but, like, people go, what about John Wooden? Totally different era. Phil Jackson barks. I mean, you know, I know everybody says, well, there's a lot of different ways to coach. You start looking at the really intense people, high school, college, and pro, they bark. When I'm watching Tom Brady last night, you know what I see? I see urgency and intensity.
I loved that.
When I see Eli and Joe Flacco, I'm at summer camp. I mean, is Flacco... I'm telling you something. One of my favorite things about Brady, he'll chew your arse. Mm-hmm. He'll get right in your face. There's no passive aggressive with Tom Brady. If he's pissed, he's right in your face. It's effective. Popovich, it's effective. I mean, and Christine goes, there's never a time in your life you should yell.
No, in sports, I get it. I think it's also predominantly men that are screaming at each other because it's an effective way of communication for you people. But I'm saying, you brought up, like, men could be able to scream at women, and I just don't think you need to. Like, women can communicate more effectively. We don't need to scream and yell. But in sports, I get it.
So you guys want to be treated equally, but no yelling at us.
Yeah, there's no reason. We don't yell at you.
Oh, you're not married. What world do you live in?
There's no reason to ever yell.
Every guy driving his car just rolled his eyes and went, yeah, nobody ever yells at us.
You can communicate effectively, more effectively even, without screaming.
No, I think volume works.
No, it doesn't.
I think it gets
to the point where you don't hear anything. You just hear blah.
No, I think you hear barking. I think it's intimidating.
Exactly, barking.
You know what?
So when your wife yells at you, do you back
if
down
you're laying
or do you
in
go
bed,
harder?
You're laying in bed and you're in a neighborhood, you're single, and the dog barks. It's effective. Somebody's outside my house. Dogs barking is effective. It's a signal.
See what you're saying.
Yeah, barking is effective by animals and people.
You're now relating dogs to men.
Well, we are dogs sometimes. Mm-hmm. Very simple, and we look for the next cat. I'm just saying.
Colin! You look for the next cat, Mr. Kid.
I'm happily married. I'm a loyal dog.
So when Ann is yelling at you, do you yell at her back or you sit there and listen?
There's no point.
I bet you she doesn't even yell.
Oh, yeah, she does. She's an artist. They're all crazy.
Oh, my goodness.
So, speaking of fired up, here's Tom Brady finding Chris Hogan. God, is Brady great. He's yelling at people. He's in everybody's kitchen.
I loved it.
And the game was getting close because New England's special teams were embarrassing. And let's listen to a couple of different versions of it.
What was a 20-point lead is now 3. 6:28 to go in the fourth quarter. Tom Brady after the play fake. Deep pass, man running open. Chris Hogan off to the races. Touchdown, New England. No flags on the play.
Chris Hogan from Monmouth College with the biggest catch of his pro football career. They saw something in the Ravens secondary. You have to wonder what number 33, Matt Elam, is doing when he throws a coverage, and you do not do that against Tom Brady. He will throw you.
Play fake to Blunt. Stands in. Throws deep down the right side for Hogan. Behind the defense. Reels it in. He's gone. 20. 10. Touchdown. Patriots.
Woo! How about that? I like those drives. 79-yard dagger. And then a helmetless T-Sizzle walking off in disbelief. That is a dagger by Brady. Brady went nuts after that. Talking about excitement.
Edelman's
How do you love, especially Mike Lombardi? God, I love that intensity. God, I love it. Oh, so I said this about John Harbaugh earlier. People are saying Colin's crazy. I like John Harbaugh, right?
Yeah.
But you got to pivot in life. And he's a special teams coach. They don't draft offense. What is their identity? I'm just saying, we just fired Jeff Fisher because they can't get the offense right. Baltimore always plays good defense.
Right.
They have terrific special teams. They're very good at home. What are they offensively?
I have no idea. They've lost their identity. I think what's happened is they've tried to make Flacco a West Coast quarterback. He's not a West Coast quarterback. He doesn't throw the ball well in rhythm. Last night, the Patriots played cover 2 against them. Split safety. When you play split safety, the defense is saying to you, run the ball. See if you can run it. And they wouldn't run the ball. They refused to run the ball.
Only had 4 rushing attempts first half.
They refused to run the ball. They just dared them into running. It was the best defensive performance the Patriots had. If you play cover 3 against the Patriots, you're going to throw it. If you play cover 2 against the Patriots, they're going to run it. Well, they don't have an identity on offense. I mean, that's clear. This Dickerson kid's a good back. He broke tackles in the second half. You're going to go into New England if you're going to control the pace of the game. I think when John made his mistake is when Gary Kubiak left. He tried to go back to the West Coast. He has a bunch of his ex-Philadelphia assistants on the staff. And I think he should have stayed with that Denver scheme. That's when Flacco played his best.
Flacco's never been the same since Kubiak left.
Right, and that scheme is perfect for Flacco. It's play action. It's throw the ball down the field. There's no real rhythm throws in it. It's not reliant. I mean, how many third downs is Joe going to have to throw sticks or option routes? That's not what he does well. He needs chunks down the field. And I just think they haven't gotten it right on offense, Colin.
All right, here we go. I'm going to throw my candidates out, and you tell me on the L.A. Rams job. First of all, I want to ask you this, a macro topic. Is it a great job?
Here's what I say that. I think, look, you are not going to take out the Taliban with just one missile. You're not going to beat Pete Carroll with just one hire. You got to build an organization. And I think the Rams have to identify that they've got to build an organization. And it's got to be a football culture organization. Do you realize, Colin, the Rams, Jeff Fisher's on the competition committee, they finished in the bottom bottom third. I think the highest they've ever were was 25th in most penalties accumulated against them. It's not a disciplined team. So whomever comes in to take over the Rams is going to have to instill a culture of discipline, of accountability. They're going to have to do that. It's a long process. Now, well, Kevin, who's judging me? Is Kevin Demoff judging me? Is Stan Kroenke judging me? How's this all going to work out? Before we go through the names, tell me how this is all going to work out, because it doesn't have any semblance of being successful unless you build an organization. We're going to build an organization. Demoff's going to run the business. He has nothing to do with football. Okay, now let's build a football organization with football people that know what we're doing. The problem with the NFL is, and this is why Jim Harbaugh's not going to go back to the NFL, is because you have too many people that know nothing about football that are running football teams. You got analytical people coming in talking about this. You've got salary cap people thinking we should do this. All these things come in. Nick Saban's still the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. If his team doctor would have said, you know what, Drew Brees can pass the physical. He left because of that. That's fact. That's not disputable. That's fact. He said, I'm going to Alabama where I can control everything that affects our ability to win. Not what affects me, what affects our ability to win. That's the most important thing. And I think the Rams have to decide, Stan Kroenke, number one, what kind of this is his chance to build an organization. This is his chance to build what he wants. Don't win the press conference. Win the Super Bowl. Build an organization.
Okay, so you've said Harbaugh, no chance he comes.
No chance.
Sean Payton.
I think Sean Payton's daughter, she goes to school at Pepperdine. I think he's an attractive candidate. But the rules to the NFL make it very difficult. They'd have to trade for him. Is he worth trading for? Yes. Are you going to build an organization? I think that's what you'd have to do. The problem is the Rams gave up all their picks for Goff. So what do you have in assets to go get a coach? You don't really have any.
John Gruden.
Another interesting guy. I think John Gruden would come in and light the fire up of the offense. It would be good, but you got to get John to build an organization. John would have to hire a personnel guy to come with him. John's expertise is coaching the team. He needs a football guy to go down there and be the right guy to help him and tell him what he needs to know about personnel. I think that's it. John will coach a bunch of different players. You just got to let the personnel guy coach, and it's got to be somebody that can work with John.
Josh McDaniels, you know him well, young, bright offensive coordinator for Belichick. Left for Denver, didn't work, drafted Tebow, but he's back to humming with Tom.
Yeah, doing well. I think that he learned. I think the one thing you do in the NFL is you learn. There's no school you go to learn how to become an NFL head coach. And when you usually get fired the second time around, Mike Shanahan's second time around was much better. Bill Belichick's second time around. Gruden's second time around. So you learn what you're doing. I think Josh understands it, but Josh won't be the right coach for the Rams unless Kroenke's willing to say, we want to build a culture here. Because what will happen in Denver is the same thing what would happen in Denver will happen in Los Angeles. If the owner doesn't want to build a culture, there's no sense going in there. It would make no sense.
How long does it take?
It's going to take you 3 years. It's going to take 3 years.
Oh, my God.
It's going to take you 3 years to rebuild it, to get the kind of players in there to get it going. If you get the quarterback, it may take 2. And he'll coach the quarterback. I think Kyle Shanahan would be another good name. Kyle Shanahan will coach the quarterback, but you better let Kyle or Mike, his father. You know, the one thing about the Redskins, all those good Redskin players Mike brought in, Cousins, Jordan Reed, a lot of those guys were there. That Jay Gruden's benefited.
Mike Shanahan, was that Kyle or Mike? Because I've always said it. Mike Shanahan's the best football coach in America that's unemployed.
It's unbelievable how he's unemployed. It's just true.
It's incredible.
Every Sunday night at 7 o'clock, I say to my wife, how is Mike Shanahan not coaching in this? After what I just watched today, how is this not happening? I don't understand.
Well, he's got a high price tag. And again,
But a high price tag. The cap's $160 million. If you pay Mike $10 million a year.
But Mike wants control, and a lot of these owners,
they don't want to do it.
They don't want to relinquish. They're billionaires.
There's the problem. They want to play with their toy. They want other people that they know to play with their toy, and that doesn't work. That is impossible. That is why Bill Walsh was successful, because Eddie DeBartolo let him build the team. Look, Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft lets Bill Belichick, he says, hit your cap, you do it, and you're going to be judged on what you do. He doesn't meddle into what's going on there. He wants to know what's going on, but he doesn't meddle. You got to build an organization. Look, you're not going to beat Pete Carroll with just one guy. It's going to take an organization to do it. And if you don't want to build it, then just tell the fans we're just going to be 8-8 every year.
Okay, you said that Jim Harbaugh, because I think he'll stay at Michigan for years and complete the cycle. I think he'll win I do think he'll win a national title there and certainly compete for him. He'll get into this playoff thing. I contend he's the only team this year that could still play with Alabama. I think defensively they have 11 all Big Ten guys. I think they can go toe-to-toe with Michigan. Don't think they beat them, but can make it close. Does he have a dream job, in your opinion?
I think he's at the dream job. Look, when he puts those glasses on and he's wearing that outfit, he looks like Bo Schembechler to me. I mean, I think he's at his dream job. I think he's happy. His mom and dad live there. His dad hasn't been of the best of health. His dad's recovering. He's in the Midwest. He loves the Midwest. I think he's at his dream job. Look, he brought a glove to the Cubs game. He's a child at heart. He loves it. He loves the passion of college football. Plus, he's a scoring lover. Look, let's be honest. What happened in San Francisco is not an easy thing to swallow. I mean, he took his team to a Super Bowl. He won 3. He was at 3 conference championship games, and he was told that he really wasn't going to get his contract extended. That doesn't put a really nice taste in your mouth when you're dealing with the NFL. I mean, that makes you say, wait a minute, is this really important? Is this really what I want to do?
Mike Lombardi joining us. It's a former GM, a player personnel guy, a guy I lean on all the time for this kind of information. There was always a sense the NFL was the best job. And then something's happened. Maybe it's the big TV network deals, the Big Ten network, the Pac-12 network, the SEC network. That an athletic director now doesn't flinch at $6.5 million a year.
No.
So the quality of life has always been better as a college coach.
Right.
You don't have, you got to do some recruiting. Nick doesn't mind recruiting.
No.
And by the way, these good coaches like Harbaugh, they got multiple good recruiters on the staff. You don't have to close that many deals.
Plus, it's not that hard to get on a private plane and fly to somewhere else. I mean, it's not that difficult. Okay.
So here's my thing. The quality of life was always better in college. Now the money's, there's 25 college guys making more than Jack Del Rio. I am wondering, when you talk to your people, has college football now
easily? It's the better job.
It's the better job.
It's by far the better job because you don't have 2 analytic guys coming in that you should throw the ball on this down. You don't have salary cap guys saying we can't afford this. You're just recruiting. You're evaluating. You control your destiny. There's nobody. What you don't do. This is probably the most fairest thing to say. I'm not being mad at salary cap guys or analytical people, but this is the fairest thing to say. You don't have to worry about who's talking to the owner. In college, there's nobody talking to the owner. It's the alumni. You control it. It's wins and losses. That's the most important thing.
Because guys get in the owner's ear, chirp, chirp. Lombardi doesn't know. Belichick doesn't know.
Look, when somebody sit next to the owner on game day, that ain't good for the coach. Okay? Like, that's an optic that you, as a coach, really doesn't want. Somebody's talking to the owner on game day. You don't want to sit with the owner. The owner is the owner. Let him be the owner. You be the football guy. And general managers having press conference during the season, that's not good either, because this general manager should be seen, not heard during the season, because you can only put your foot in your mouth.
Good seeing you, man.
Thanks.
That was fun last night as a Patriot fan. I didn't say that I'm not a fan. I'm a reporter, but that was really good.
That was good, Christine. Huh?
That was.
We didn't talk about this absurd idea that you had that the Patriots should lose on purpose.
No, I'll throw this out to you. She thinks I'm crazy.
I do.
Okay, it's wrapped up.
Yeah.
You get to week 17, and you're sitting there and you're thinking, Miami splits with the Jets and the Bills, so they're 9-6. We're playing backups. Milquetoast offensive game plan. I'd rather see Miami up north than Baltimore again. Am I out of my mind?
I don't think you're out of your mind. I think it's all about who do you want to play. I think it's all about what quarterback do you want to play. I think that Baltimore would go back. Remember the Jets? Do you remember this when the Jets came into Foxborough in a December Monday night game and got whooped, right? And then the month later, with Rex Ryan was the coach, beat the Patriots in a playoff game.
I remember it.
Do you remember that? Well, that little last night, that was a whooping last night. Other than that should have been a 37.
Oh, that wasn't.
That was a whooping.
It was a lopsided close game.
It was a whooping, and I think that you're done with Baltimore. You don't want to play Baltimore again.
No, thank you.
That's it.
But can you see Bill actually throwing a game?
He's not throwing a game.
I think he's saving his players.
That's
you
exactly
think he would
right.
do that?
There's a difference between throwing a game and saving your players.
Thank you.
Wow. I want to look back at this. There was a situation a couple years ago where it was the same kind of thing, where people were saying they should throw the game, and he didn't do it.
Last year we thought, play Denver or Pittsburgh, and you never really get that right. But I think if you have a chance to play Miami at home in the cold, I'd take that over with Matt Moore. I take that every time.
I would too. I just can't see Bill doing that.
You're using the wrong language.
It's not giving the game up. Let Garoppolo get some reps and go out there and play. You want to play Edelman in a game? I mean, you got to save your guys for the big game, right?
I'm not saying anything. All I'm saying is Belichick is ahead of the league. Belichick's
so far ahead. It's so scary.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, Chris Hogan wasn't good enough to play for Buffalo, just so we keep that aware. I mean, can you imagine that? I mean, it's really unbelievable.
It really is. Kristen, you should listen to the show. You can pick up a lot of tricks of the trade.
I love it. I love it.
And Lombardi's right in the middle of this. Get me out of here! Daggers! All right, good seeing you, Mike.
Good seeing you.
Last month, my listeners got a stunning deal from Simply Safe, $200 off the award-winning Defender security system. It was a blowout. They liked it so much, they said, look at our sales numbers. Let's offer it again. They listened. $200 off Simply Safe's Defender package. It's award-winning. It protects your home. Arsenal of 17 security sensors, a panic button, and a siren to scare off would-be intruders. For the record, 2 blocks from my house last night, cops everywhere. I texted my wife this morning. She said, burglary. Manhattan Beach cops, the best in the world. Next to Simply Safe, a wireless connection to authorities that could eventually be used. FAU. Sorry about that. I don't know much about I looked up their schedule today. They only had 4 games scheduled. You ever notice this, though? Charlie Strong took a job in Florida. Butch Davis took a job in Florida. Lane Kiffin took a job in Florida. Why do you think that is? That's where all the players are. I mean, there's so many players in Florida. The SEC raids it. I mean, these guys that want to get back into coaching, they know they can take jobs in Florida, recruit like hell. Butch can recruit, Lane can recruit, Charlie can recruit, and they can get an NFL roster within like 3 and 4 years, win a bunch of games. I mean, that's why all these guys are taking jobs you've never heard of in Florida. Florida International, Florida Atlantic, Florida A&I, Florida. I mean, they're endless. USF, UCF, UF, FSU. Miami. There's a million Florida jobs. That's where all the players are. So here's Lane Kiffin this morning at his presser.
When we first started speaking almost 2 weeks ago about this job, I was not in a position where my mind was I have to be a head coach. My mindset was I want to find a place that is very committed to winning, a program that's very committed to going to the next level, and a place that wants to see great things happen. Somewhere they use the word we.
Somewhere they use the word we. Well, I think he's going to win games. He's just trying to rebuild his career. I got to tell you, you want to hear a funny story? No, I can't tell it yet.
No, don't do that.
No. I'll tell it when he leaves Alabama. Yeah, it wouldn't be fair. It's not horrible, but it's a funny story about our show and Lane and anything. I'll tell it after he leaves Alabama.
You're such a good teaser.
Well, I didn't mean to do that. I just talked and I didn't think it out.
That's a problem.
Yeah,
in this business.
Yeah, I mean, I should have thought it out before I blurted it out. And so I'm just going to reel that thing back in and we'll talk about that in a month.
Okay, I'll remind you.
Yeah.
I'll set an alarm clock.
No, and I know 2 guys that have coached under Nick Saban. Jim McElwain, who I went to college with, and Lane Kiffin. And I know him about equally well. I think I knew Jim much better early. And I'm not an expert on either, but I have, I know enough about them and know people who know them. I know a lot of people who know both. They're very, very different guys. They're very, very different guys. McElwain had real success at Colorado State, and then he's won the SEC East. Now, it's not very good, but he's won it back-to-back years. He's just got to kind of figure out the quarterback situation, and he will eventually. He's a good coach.
So you just half told the story then?
No, I didn't half tell the story. It's a story.
Okay.
It's a text I got from Lane a while back, but it's not fair to tell until he's gone from Alabama. It'll be very interesting to see because Nick Saban is hard to work for. Belichick is not hard to work for. People come back to Belichick all the time. People leave Belichick and come back, players and coaches. Belichick's not hard to coach for. He's demanding, do your job. Saban's impossible to coach for. Nobody goes back to Saban. You serve your time and escape Saban. I mean, there's an old story that I've heard several times from people in the know that when Nick was at Michigan State and he took the LSU job, he told the staff, the private plane is leaving in 4 hours. If you want to go to LSU, meet me there. And nobody showed up. Now, that's one of those stories that maybe has grown over time, but Saban is hard. He doesn't let his assistants even keep a TV on. He is demanding you don't go back to Saban. You serve your time with Nick, and then you get the hell out. And you move on. But it's not that way with Belichick. It's not. Belichick, everybody thinks they're the same. They're not. Belichick's got his working personality is easy. Kind of do your job, leaves you alone. He'll bark at you once in a while, but he's not a big yeller screamer. He yells occasionally, but he's not. Saban can't even control himself on television. I mean, most coaches don't want to yell on television. Saban doesn't want to do that. He comes unhinged, at least in a close game 2 or 3 times. Herd hierarchy around the corner. Christine with the news.
No. Herd on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Dak Prescott's thrown under 200 yards in 3 straight games. So a lot of people are asking now, the rumors are starting, when will it be time for Tony Romo to come in? But Jason Garrett is making it very clear that that will not happen.
Jerry, in your mind, what is a definitive situation that would call on Tony to come back in?
Preparation this week and as we go forward. And he's done a really good job for us up to this point. We've won 11 out of 13 games that he started, and he's handled really every situation as well as you can handle it.
Jerry Jones, on the other hand, says that there is a scenario where we could see Tony Romo.
Oh, brother.
Jerry, in your mind, what is a definitive situation that would call on Tony to come back in?
I don't have a definition for it, but you'll know it when you see it. It's kind of like a definition I heard one time of another issue trying to define a negative topic, and they said, I don't know how to say it, but it's just something that when you see it, you know it's there.
He's the kind of guy who just likes to leave all the doors open and give us riddles.
Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones had a relationship, and Jerry told Jimmy in the end, it's my football team and I want to have fun. Mm-hmm. And so this is fun for Jerry Jones. And Jimmy and Parcells basically told him to be quiet, and he didn't like that. So Jason Garrett allows him to have his press conference every day.
The NFL has announced their 2017 London schedule, so we'll show you the matchups here. The Ravens are going to play the Jaguars.
Awful.
Why?
The last thing I want my responsible son to do is hang out with an irresponsible friend.
Okay, what about this? That was my initial reaction to it, and then I thought about it. What's better? I mean, I don't have kids, but I would imagine that it would be really great if my kid, who I knew was responsible, smart, had everything together, could help another person in need and be sort of a mentor.
That sounds so good.
Doesn't it?
It just sounds so...
What if Derek Carr could actually help Johnny Manziel?
What about David Carr helping Johnny Manziel instead of Derek?
Well, maybe Derek Carr is more
I like
for that.
David Carr out of the league working for the network, NFL Network. He could help Johnny Manziel.
But maybe they can't relate to the same things.
God, dude.
I kind of like it. I was with you in the beginning, and then I thought about it some more, and I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I think you're outthinking it. I think your initial reaction to agree with me was the right one. Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
Christine and I are just not getting along right now. Okay, now it's time. I do this every week on Tuesday, and it's getting tougher and tougher. Here's my herd hierarchy for the week. Let's roll it.
Herd Hierarchy.
Time is now. Let's go.
The top 10 NFL teams according to Colin. Number 10.
Listen, I've just not really put my arms around Atlanta. They do lead the NFL in yards per play, and that's a thing. And if they played a home playoff game, I'd like them. I think the key to this team is Vic Beasley has been roaring. He leads the NFL in sacks since week 5, and that's been the game changer. Their defense with Vic Beasley and the takeaways have gone up. So it's not that I think their offense is better. They're playing better defense, so I put them at 10, Atlanta.
Number 9.
There's so many things I like about the Ravens. They have the second best scoring and total defense in the AFC, and over the last 6 games, Joe Flacco's completing about 70%. But what is their offensive identity? And that game was like a lopsided close game last night. What is their offensive identity? Just out of respect for the organization, I'll put them 9.
Number 8.
I still can't get my arms around the Giants, but here's something that I can't deny. The NFL's not just one season. It's 2 and 3 seasons. Since week 6, the Giants' defense is the best in the league on third down and the best scoring defense. That you can't deny. So you're going to be in every game if you play defense like the Giants. I think the gap between the first best team in the league and about the 8th best team is pretty slender, so I put the Giants at 8. But I'd still like to see more of a life and being less paralyzed by Odell Beckham on offense.
Number 7.
That's why I give Seattle with a playmaker at quarterback a little edge over the New York Giants, although in the last 3 games, Russell Wilson has 2 TDs and 8 picks. This team is not good up front offensively. They're just not. I still like Pete. Russell can make dynamic plays. They're well-schooled defensively and athletic. I put them at 7.
Number 6.
Raiders lost to Kansas City twice, and so I ding them for that. But Khalil Mack's got a sack in 8 straight games. Amari Cooper's elite. Derek Carr leads the NFL fourth-quarter passer rating. They can't put good teams like Kansas City. I think they're going to struggle with top-end teams because top-end teams have top-end coaches and are efficient offensively. And I think they're just going to struggle getting good offenses, or at least smart offenses like New England and Kansas City off the field. I don't think they'd match up well with Kansas City. They've lost twice, and I don't think they'd match up well with New England.
Number 5.
And I put Kansas City 1 spot ahead of them, mostly because Andy Reid, to me, is the second-best coach in the league. Tyreek Hill has become a monster offensively, and they got 25 takeaways. They do what the Raiders – they're kind of the opposite of the Raiders. They're solid everywhere. Outside of Tyreek Hill, they don't blow you away. They're not that dynamic. The Raiders are really dynamic but can't get stopped, so the Chiefs are at 5.
Number 4.
A lot of respect for Green Bay. They found a running game. Got Kristen Michael from Seattle. Credit Ted Thompson. And Ty Montgomery's more comfortable. They've got a running game now. And Jordy Nelson's bounced back. And I've been critical of the Packers before, but right now they're one of the 4 teams in the league I think look like a Super Bowl caliber team.
Number 3.
Pittsburgh Steelers. My final 4 are teams I believe are favorites to get to the Super Bowl. Pittsburgh's just explosive. They're one of 3 teams ranked in the top 10 in passing and rushing offense. And here's the key. They're not great defensively, but they can be situationally good defensively. They have the AFC's best red zone defense. That is something. They're not great defensively. That's kind of a New England quality. They're good keeping you out of the end zone and forcing threes. That wins playoff games. That's a key number for Pittsburgh. Situationally, they have improved defensively.
Number 2.
I put the Patriots. They had 3 giveaways last night, but they lead the NFL with 7 games this year without a giveaway. They don't beat themselves. They're smart. There's Brady. And Malcolm Mitchell, the rookie wide receiver. This is the story now with Gronk out. Malcolm Mitchell is their deep threat. You got to be able to stretch the field 2 or 3 times a game, and I think that's a key. We know they have the best coach. We know they have a great quarterback. But without Gronk, they lack a dynamic presence. I think Malcolm Mitchell gives them that at 2.
Number 1.
I'm going to still stick with the Dallas Cowboys. They were a play from beating the New York Giants. New York now is the best defense, so let's not overreact to this. Nobody's moving the ball in the New York Giants. Dak Prescott hasn't lost a lot of these fumbles, but hasn't looked as confident with the ball. He's fumbling more. He's not throwing it over the top. He doesn't have a relationship with Dez Bryant, but I still go back to this. They can beat you multiple ways, and they have the NFC's best rushing offense and the NFC's best rushing defense. So in the trenches, they're formidable, and I think they'd be a matchup problem for New England if they played. So the Cowboys number 1 in my herd hierarchy. God, Brady was good last night. Hey, I didn't catch this last night, and Ross on our staff is such a Laker homer.
I saw.
Did the Lakers play last night?
Yes.
And what did they do?
Well, Luke Walton got ejected.
Okay, so the Lakers lost last night.
Did they lose? I don't know if they lost.
I think they've lost like 4 or 5 in a row.
Oh, yes, you're right. You're right. They have. So he is needing to rile up the team.
They've lost 7 in a row. Okay, so here's the whole thing. When Luke got the job, everybody's like, Luke Walton, unbelievable. Next Phil Jackson, he got win all his games. Now he's dealing with injuries. This is a young roster. Everybody slow down on the Lakers. We predicted they were going to be a 29-30 win team. They've lost 7 straight games. And it's not like they're playing the cream of the crop.
You're blaming this on Luke Walton?
I'm not blaming it on Luke Walton. They play no defense.
True.
They play no defense. They can't figure out what the hell to do with Luol Deng. D'Angelo Russell may have a bad knee. So, this is one of these things where, Luke Walton, look what he's done with the Warriors. Oh, my God. Did you see what he did before Steve Kerr came back? Luke Walton's a baby. Popovich, veteran. Kerr's been in this league as a broadcaster, a general manager, a coach, and a player. Luke Walton is a kid. Anybody looks good with the Warriors. What did I keep saying last year? Oh, look what he did with the Warriors. Everybody looks good with the Warriors. They have the 3 best shooters on the planet. When he was there, they had the 2 best shooters on the planet. They had 3 of the best 14 players in the league. Now they have 4 of the best 14 players in the league. Lakers have given up 103 points in all 7 losses. Okay, that at least. They don't play any defense. They can't figure out Lou Deng. It's a bunch of kids. This is the pump your brakes on Luke Walton. And they got 6 straight on the road coming up.
Yes. That actually could be good. I think NBA teams, that's a good thing.
He's a kid. Luke Walton's a kid. You look around this league, man. Brad Stevens has built a college power. Now he's in his 6th year coaching in the NBA. He goes head-to-head with Luke. Who's the better coach? Look at the careers of Doc and Carlisle and Stevens and Popovich. These are Stan Van Gundy.
Oh, but that doesn't mean he's a bad coach.
I'm not saying he's a bad coach. I'm saying slow down on, he was good with Golden State. Come on.
He was. Look at his roster.
Steph Curry runs that offense. You could put me in for a game with Golden State, for a game, and I could win a game with Golden State.
You as the head coach.
Yeah, for a game. I'd say, Steph, whatever you did last night, do it again.
Right, yeah, the players would be the coach. They wouldn't listen to you.
No, yes, they would. I'd say, listen, Steph, I'm very articulate.
Would you yell at them so that they could hear you?
I would yell at Steph Curry. Get bigger. Play better against LeBron, or I'm sitting you. Oh, I'd be very forceful.
They'd win for sure.
They'd be intimidated by me. I may be gaunt and stick-like, but I can be very intimidating.
Are you going to wear that sweater while you're the coach?
Maybe I'll wear whatever I want to wear. Whether your season-long fantasy football team made the playoffs or not, you can still experience the thrill of 1 week fantasy football this weekend at DraftKings.com. It's not too late to play for free for huge cash prizes. It's the destination for 1 week fantasy. There's none, zero season-long commitments. Every week's a clean slate. Every week, new beginning, brand new season. Okay, so if you get into when you first started playing this stuff, if you had a bad team, you were toast for like 16 weeks. You just start over. Go to their 50-50 contest. Go to their website, 50-50 contest. Every year, and Jim Harbaugh can win in college with average quarterbacks. He can win a title. I mean, I still contend Michigan should be a Final Four team this year. They're not very good at quarterback. You can't win games in the NFL unless you get the quarterback right. And at most, you can draft 1 or 2 a year. So, I mean, think about this. In the NFL, coaches have often left the sport with many years left. Parcells could have won. Jimmy Johnson could have won. Bill Cowher, John Gruden. They could still be coaching in the NFL. They left on their terms. They were tired of it. That never happens in college. In college, you have to pry these old guys away from their jobs. You have to pry Joe Pa away. You got to pry Bobby Bowden away. It's a different ballgame. College football is more fun. It now pays the same, and the quality of life is higher. And you're in a small town where these alpha male guys can control everybody. Nick Saban controls Alabama. He controls the governor. He can control anything. Budgets, players, administrative, operational issues. You're never going to get that in the NFL. So unless you can get Andrew Luck, and that's why I think the Colts job's unbelievable. But Jim Harbaugh, to me, is right now, he is the most viable coaching candidate in America, including Bill Belichick, because he's proven he can win at college and pro. Belichick wouldn't have the time or the inclination to recruit. He wouldn't want to do that crap. Nick Saban hasn't proven he can win in the NFL, though I think he could. Urban hasn't proven he can win in the NFL, though I think he could. Bob Stoops hasn't proven he can win in the NFL, though I think he could. But Jim Harbaugh is the best coaching candidate in America. He's the best coaching candidate in America. Chris Carter on earlier today talked about him.
I don't want to see him leave Michigan. I mean, he is the right name, the right kind of coach for a place like Michigan. Just like Nick Saban, just like Urban Meyer, and being a Buckeye, I want Michigan to be really good.
Yeah. Can I just say this selfishly? Let me be totally honest with you. I don't want Harbaugh to take the Rams job. I'm just being totally selfish. At FS1, we're a building network. We're a baby. ESPN's been 40-year head start in us. We're a baby network. I mean, we don't even worry about ratings. We're just starting here. Starbucks started in 71, didn't branch out till 86, didn't figure their food out until 4 years ago. It takes a long time to build a network. We now have the Big Ten. Jim Harbaugh makes the Big Ten 1,000 times more interesting. For my business personally, I don't want Harbaugh to ever leave Michigan. I don't want Urban Meyer to ever leave Ohio State. I don't want James Franklin to ever leave Penn State. Something's happening in college football that hasn't happened in years. The Big Ten, the way to make your conference really explode is to have 4 or 5 of the blue blood programs all good at the same time. That's why it's so important for USC and Washington to win in the Pac-12. Those are your 2 best historic programs. That's why it's so important in the SEC for LSU and Georgia and Florida to get their act together. Right now it's Alabama, Tennessee doesn't know what they're doing, LSU didn't know what they're doing, Georgia's not winning games, Florida's not winning enough. But in the Big Ten, it's perfect. Ohio State's got the right coach. Michigan's got the right coach. Michigan State's got the right coach. Wisconsin's got the right coach. Penn State's got the right coach. We're getting the Big Ten. Big Ten right now is the best coach in college football, best conference. Doesn't have necessarily the best players, but about 75% of this sport is coaching. It's got by far and away the best coaches. I don't want them to leave. 1-800-Flowers.com right now, 20% off on their holiday flower tree. 1-800-Flowers.com, code HERD. We are loaded. Eric Dickerson, Bruce Feldman. This is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Eric Dickerson, did that guy get Jeff Fisher fired?
That's what some of the reports are saying.
Some of the reports are saying that phone call from Jeff Fisher to Dickerson, he went public, that got him canned. And then Bruce Feldman about the Lane Kiffin. They're both going to be on the couch. We have a very exciting last hour. Let me just say this about New England. What New England is doing right now is absurd. This is the reigning dynasty in America. Because let's get basketball out of the... Basketball, you don't have the injuries that the NFL does, or like hockey does, or baseball has with the arms. It's very hard to have a dynasty. Like in baseball, you think San Francisco Giants, dynasty. They don't even make the playoffs every other year. St. Louis Cardinals didn't make the playoffs this year. New England wins their division every year. Like every single year. 15 years. They're pre-YouTube, pre-Facebook. iPods come and gone. I mean, people forget how long 15 years is. You know when you say, like, Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler, Ohio State and Michigan. It was 10 years. They didn't battle for 25 years. They called it the 10-year war. Magic and Bird. It was 10 years. Joe Montana, Bill Walsh. It was about 9. 15 years. NFL with all the injuries. It's incredible. And what's amazing is, with all the salary caps and the player mobility, to be able to withstand all that and to be this dominant. I don't want to hear about, well, Miami's no good, and the Jets are no good, and the Bills are no good. Well, the Steelers have played with the historically pathetic Browns, and, you know, for most of their run, the iffy Bengals, and the Packers have played with the dysfunctional Lions and dysfunctional Bears, and Minnesota's been hot and cold. If you're dominating, I mean, Alabama's no less impressive just because Tennessee can't get their act together. And they are just, I mean, what New England's doing. And what's funny about New England this year, they don't do a ton well. In the AFC, they're tied for the third most 3-and-outs. They have no pass rush. They lead the AFC in fumbles. They don't have a deep threat now that Gronk's hurt. Chris Carter from earlier on this current Pats dynasty. Now, I'm just saying with salary cap and free agency, what they're doing is unbelievable in the American pro sports scene. Here's Chris Carter.
I've seen the Pittsburgh Steelers in the late 70s. You know, I've seen the San Francisco 49ers and got bludgeoned by them. The Dallas Cowboys, Michael Irvin, and the triplets. So those were true dynasties in my era. So as far as them being the most dominant, no, I don't think they're the most dominant because they did the most with the least personnel.
Absolutely. That's the key. That's the greatness of Brady. Last night, look at look at the targets last night for Tom Brady. No Gronk, 25th in sacks. This year's special teams far below Patriot standards. Lead the AFC in fumbles. And Brady's now 52-1. No, excuse me. In his last 52 games against AFC opponents at Foxborough, he's 51-1. Holy God. Let's bring in Eric Dickerson, a Hall of Famer and now becoming a regular on our show. Now, This was Eric a couple of weeks ago telling us about his conversation with Rams COO Kevin Demoff and questioning how Fisher still had a job. Let's play this first before we start talking to Eric.
I asked Kevin Demoff point blank last night. I say, so are you bringing Jeff Fisher back? Does he have an extension? He said, well, we're talking about it. He said, what do you think? I said, my honest opinion? I said, no. I said, I'm just going to be honest. I said, look, he's had 5 years. 5 years of losing. I mean, why would you bring him back? I mean, I asked him, I said, where are the naked pictures at? I said, that's the only, he must got something on someone because 5 years is enough.
Well, and I said this yesterday, Eric Dickerson, Hall of Famer, joining us. Fisher is a made man in the league. For instance, he was on the competition committee. He ran it. Like, no coach wants to do that, right?
Nope.
He said, I'll do it. Michael Sam, according to published reports, the NFL had called in that draft as Michael Sam dropped. And they asked some teams, could you draft him? This doesn't look good. He said, I'll do it. Hard Knocks, not a coach in this league, Eric, wants to be on Hard Knocks. And Jeff Fisher said,
I'll do it.
I'll do it. Do you think a lot of his durability with this was he's a made man in the league?
Well, yeah, Jeff is a well-liked guy, in the National Football League. I think he'll have if he doesn't coach, I think he'll have a job in the front office.
Yes.
And I still go back to what I said earlier. I said it months ago on my show that I think that the conflict of interest had a lot to do with it. I really believe that. With Marvin Demoff being the COO's son and he's his age, they've been knowing Jeff since he was 3 years old. I think that had a lot to do with it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, Jeff's, like I said, I don't know Jeff, but he's a great guy. He's a good guy. Then some people say different. So, but, Jeff will be fine. Let's put it like that. I mean, he will be fine. He's getting, $8 million for not even coaching? You can't, can I sign up for that gig?
Do you, when you hear the reports that phone call that you talked about, some have said, oh, that was the deal breaker, that the organization heard that Eric Dickerson story. How does that land for you?
I don't think that was the deal. But the deal breaker is not winning. That's what it comes down to. Let's just put it in plain form. People want to say, I got him fired. I got so many texts about it. Good, you got him out of there. I didn't get that man out of there. Losing gets you out of there. It's all about winning. When I heard Kevin Demoff say, well, it's not about the record. It's more to it than that. Hey, look, it's all about winning. Everybody's not a winner. Everybody doesn't get a little trophy and go home. This is the National Football League. It's a rough and tough sport. It's different when I played, but it's still football.
You played in the Jim Harbaugh era. Do you know Harbaugh?
I don't know Jim. No, I don't.
You're a pretty intense guy. If I said to you, Jim Harbaugh in the Rams, does that feel like a good fit?
You know what? I'm going to say this much here. Yes, because he's a proven product. And that's what it comes down to, proving what you've done. I look at what he's done at Stanford. Stanford was not a good football team.
They were 0-12. They were a disaster.
I think when he got there, they were 1-11.
1-11.
1-11. He goes to the San Francisco 49ers. I think they were 6-10 or something like that.
They're a mess.
13-3. Went to 3 NFC championship games. Look, University of Michigan. Turn that program around.
They had empty seats.
At Michigan. Now, you didn't ever see that. Michigan was always sold.
For 40 years, I didn't see a empty seat. They had sections that were empty when he took it over.
I wish he'd come to my university. But do I think it's a good fit for the Rams? I do. Look, I'm not going to write that $10, $12 million check, but that's just my opinion. I think if you want to win and you want to win now, start the process. Because, look, we have a young quarterback, a young kid. You've got to get him on the right track. This is where we put our future in. And if they bring a guy in to try to save money right now, we'll try to go into the stadium, hobble into the stadium maybe 8-8, 7-9. That's not going to work. You need to go in that stadium blowing it out.
What do players tell you about Jared Goff? Because, there have been moments. He's got a nice, I like his throwing motion. I've said this before. There are some things, I watched Tom Brady in college, and I watch Goff, and I'm like, there's some physical attributes that are very similar. Now, it's a different game today. It's faster today. But do you think anybody's bailed on Goff? Are there people in an organization that have?
I don't know. I don't think that was Jeff Fisher's pick, and I say that for a couple of reasons. I talked to a guy that had coached with Jeff before, and he said that wasn't his pick. That's not his kind of guy. I know his kind of guy. Steve McNair, big kind of guy. That's the kind of guy he likes. That said, Jared Goff, to me, when I look at him, it's unfair to judge him because the offense, I said it was high school. People call it middle school. I think Todd Gurley called it middle school. I've been saying that for weeks.
Remedial.
It's just so, we open up the game. I know the plays. It's going to be a run up the middle. It's going to be a check down or a 5-yard out. You can count on that. And if you get a big play, it's going to be a holding penalty. It's going to come back. So, those are the things you can count on. Jared Goff, to me, looks like a quarterback sometimes like, whew, this is fast. I mean, but all rookies are like that. I was like that. Man, this is fast. And I go back and say that it's not fair to give him, I can't judge him. And I'm not a quarterback, but I know what I see. You know, he still doesn't have the right coaching. And that's what I look at it for a quarter. He has to have the right coaching to give him that confidence when he walks on the field. Okay, I've seen this. I know what to expect.
You know, it's funny about the kind of the Rams community. I watch Vince Ferragamo and Jackie Slater. I see in a local TV show, and I listen to you. And there really is a real community in this town. It's funny, though. Right now, Los Angeles is there for the taking. The Lakers are young. The Clippers are the Clippers. The Clippers have good players, but they've never, like, galvanized the town. UCLA football is kind of down. USC is good, but it's college football. Like, do you think, as a former Ram, how does it all play to you? Do you think it was the right time, the right stadium? Like, how does it play to you when you wake up with these Rams? Are you proud? Are you embarrassed?
Well, for as a play that I've seen, it's embarrassing. But I'll say this much here. A lot of those guys are playing their hearts out. You know, that defense plays hard. Not saying all the offense doesn't play hard. Not saying all the players don't play. They play hard. It's embarrassment in some ways because I feel like this was where the Los Angeles Rams should have never left. And if we don't wake up and get it together, I'm just saying, if the Raiders would happen to show up in town,
they'd take the city over.
The Rams would be the Clippers of the 80s. They'd be like, who? Oh, we ain't gonna.
If the Raiders were in town today,
it would be over.
They would take the city over.
They would take this. It would be Raider everything. I mean, we have loyal fans too. We do. But the Raider fans are a different breed. And you know what? I can say this much. I played for the Raiders 1 year. I'm happy for those fans because they were just like us. They've been waiting 12 or 13 years for a winning season. We've been waiting since 2003 to have a winning season. You can go back and say, well, we were 8-8. 8-8 is a loser. You're a loser. If you're happy with that, you're a loser.
By the way, Kevin Demoff and you went to a long dinner to talk about Jeff Fisher. So Jeff Fisher is now out. Have you talked to Kevin Demoff?
I texted Kevin Demoff last week, and I texted him. This is what I texted him. I say, Kevin, let's just meet up. You know, I don't even want to talk about football. I said, let's just get to know each other a little bit better.
And you did.
I texted him. He said, I'm going to be out of town this week. He might not be with all this going on. He said, but the following week. So I'm waiting, and we'll get together. I really don't want to talk about football. Like I told him, I just want to get to know him and let him get to know me.
When do you think they'll hire a coach?
I mean, they need to do it soon. I mean, the coach they're gonna have for a couple of years, or if they're gonna, like I say, gonna try to play this game. Try to get a guy and then just wait till we're going to stadium.
If John Gruden got the job, how would it play to you?
I think that would be okay too. I think John's a very good coach. I mean, I think he's been on air long. He hasn't coached in a while. I mean, that's a good job he got. He had to worry about getting fired after that job.
Well, he's on the draft. He's on Monday Night Football. He does that quarterback camp. He's the highest paid ESPN employee. Now, do you believe his absence from the league would affect his coaching?
Yes, I mean, that's just my opinion. I think being away from something for a while, you have to get, it's like anything, riding the bike, you got to jump on, okay, I know how to do it again. I mean, one thing I know this much here, he knows how to coach a quarterback. He would help our quarterback.
Yes.
And that's what we need. This is supposedly our future, our young quarterback. We need the guy there to do that with our young quarterback, Jared Goff.
Yeah. It just, you know what it felt like with Jeff Fisher? And I got nothing against him. He's just one of those coaches. His friends are special team and defensive coaches. He doesn't know offensive coaches. He doesn't know coordinators. He's butchered it. They don't draft the offense.
Not at all.
They don't have a. The minute Gary Kubiak left Joe Flacco, the offense has floundered.
I mean, you look at our offense. I mean, let's go back to the picks, some of the picks that we picked. We have, let's say the target is over here. We're shooting over here. I mean, we're missing so bad. It's like, who picking these guys? I mean, are they closing their eyes picking them? So it shows it's a miss. It's a miss up top. And, it always.
It's an organizational situation.
Very much an organizational situation.
Yeah. All right. Eric, every Monday, has the Eric Dickerson Show in Los Angeles. It's on 570 in Los Angeles from 12 to 2. It's good seeing you again.
Hey, Colin, always good seeing you. And you too, young lady, even though you roll your eyes.
Young lady.
You are young. Why don't you announce your age right now on national TV?
Well, everyone knows how old I am, so I have no problem saying I'm 30.
Oh, young lady, like I said.
That's
young
right,
lady,
young lady.
Young lady, good seeing you.
Sooner or later, your car's going to break down. That's when Car Shield's going to come and be a very important factor in your life. $2 billion in claims paid out. Listen, unless you have a brand new car, if your car's 4 years old at 11, 12, 13 years old, you need extended coverage. A lot of people forget a transmission can be $3,000, an engine can be $4,000. Also with CarShield, they have 24/7 roadside assistance. Also, rental cars provided when your car is in the shop. It's the easiest company to use to get extended coverage. If you have a problem, it's hassle-free. You pick the repair shop and the dealer. CarShield pays them directly. You don't have to get into that goofy reimbursement game. Extended vehicle service protection. CarShield.com, code HERD. The phone number is 800-423-2160. CarShield.com, code HERD. Save 10% today if you go online. It's the HERD. Jim Harbaugh would be the number one candidate right now in the NFL for virtually any job that came open. He could have any of them. So is Los Angeles and the Rams big enough for him? I don't know. I don't know right now. I don't think Harbaugh's going to take it. And I don't buy into this. He went to Michigan. He'll never leave. Oh, be quiet. College fans are so parochial. He'd leave eventually. Nick Saban would leave Alabama if he was 48, not 65. The reality, though, the job's not done for Harbaugh. He makes $9 million at Michigan. And remember, it used to be that the NFL jobs were way better than college jobs. The quality of life was better in college. You didn't have to deal with a GM and an owner. And, you know, the NFL's kind of more of a grind. It's tough on wives. But now that college football pays what it pays and the quality of life is better, the college job he can control, get home and have dinner once in a while. So I think there's no chance he takes the job. Best kicker in the game, defensive studs, impatient owner, top GM, good scouting department. He doesn't make the playoffs 3 out of 4 years, no playoffs. With the Super Bowl MVP. And John Harbaugh, like Jeff Fisher, his expertise is not offense. It's special teams. And last night, his special teams once again were great, and the only thing that kept that game from being lopsided. But when you watch that football game, and you watch Baltimore, they're a more talented version of the Rams. They have Flacco. They draft defense, they scheme defense, they acquire defense, they coach defense very well. But Baltimore's number one offensive threat is a 37-year-old wide receiver with one Achilles. And if not for 2 special teams play, and that's John Harbaugh's strength, that game's not close. Guys, if you're wondering whether your shirt's too long to wear untucked, it probably is. Untuckit.com has solved the problem. Go there now, untuckit.com. Use the code SPORTS, 15% off. They got a store in Chicago, New York, and now one in L.A. on Melrose Avenue. I just want to make sure, one of the things because I left my former employer, believe it or not, pretty amicably. I mean, I hate some people there, but big deal. But the point is, I never want to badmouth anybody because I have a lot of friends over there. When I say Monday Night Football, John Gruden, the profile of the game is shrinking. That's not a shot at Sean McDonough. Sean McDonough's great. In fact, years and years ago, I had good relationships with my management there, and from time to time, they would ask me questions about who I thought was talented, and I told them for years, I said, you guys bury Sean McDonough. I think he's one of your best play-by-play guy in the whole shop. And so but I do believe that Gruden had a good relationship with Tirico. I think Monday Night Football is shrinking because Thursday Night Football, the NFL wants Thursday Night Football to be really, really big. Why? For a lot of reasons. One is the NFL truly believes they built ESPN, and ESPN hasn't had to pay for a lot of what they built. So they always give ESPN the crappiest games. They make them pay. They give us great games. They give Sunday Night Football great games. They give Thursday Night Football divisional games. They don't give ESPN good games. The NFL's punishing ESPN, and that's why the next go-around, they're going to charge them a fortune. And they have the weakest NFL package. This is not a shot at Sean McDonough. I think he's really talented. But the profile of that game, it's not as big as it was. When I was a kid growing up, Monday Night Football, you watched it for the highlights. Howard Cosell would come up at halftime. You hadn't seen the highlights. There was no internet. Not to sound really old, but like now, I don't need Monday Night Football, and the games are generally crappy. But McDonough, he's great. Here's one of his calls last night. I think as a pure play-by-play guy, he was the most. I thought he was as talented as anybody that network had on play-by-play.
What was a 20-point lead is now 3. 6:28 to go in the fourth quarter. Tom Brady after the play fake. Deep pass, man running open. Chris Hogan off to the races. Touchdown, New England. No flags on the play. Chris
Hogan from Monmouth College with the biggest catch of his pro football career. They saw something in the Ravens secondary. You have to wonder what number 33, Matt Elam, is doing when he throws a coverage, and you do not do that against Tom Brady. He will drill you.
Yeah, I think McDonough and Gruden are really good. I think Sean McDonough is really good. So I don't want that to be taken as I'm taking. I just think the Monday Night Football is not as big as it used to be. It used to be in America the game where bettors made their money back. But now you got flex NFL games, you got the London game, you got the Thursday multiple games, and the world's changed. There's just more places. You got an NFL network now. You got a whole network given to the NFL. So the world's changed. I got Hunter Lunch, Bruce Feldman. It's amazing how much show we have left. It is amazing how much show we have left. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
With a little over 4 minutes left in the first quarter of the Lakers game yesterday, Julius Randle and DeMarcus Cousins got tangled up. They both fell to the court. No foul was called, and Luke Walton was very upset about this. He actually had to be restrained by Jordan Clarkson, of all people.
Almost like he's immature and young.
Oh, come on. Here's what happened.
Luke Walton's hot. He's going to get a technical. Luke Walton he may get tossed. Luke Walton he is hot. Luke Walton has just been tossed from this game by Monty McCutcheon. Luke Walton starting a 7-game trip, and 4 minutes and 14 seconds left in the first quarter is done for the night.
Okay, this is one of those things where he's having to do something to stand up for his players. They're on a losing streak right now. He's got to kind of add some oomph. Now, you're going to say that Luke Walton is being immature, but what Doc Rivers did isn't? That was 10 times worse.
Yeah, just these coaches get a little worked up. Listen, I like Luke Walton. He has the best radio voice in the history of professional coaching. He really does.
He does.
Oh, God, he's got the best voice ever. And I think he's really smart, because I think his dad's a smart guy. A little out there, but smart. Sometimes the sports world goes crazy. Dak Prescott, MVP. Dak Prescott's not the best quarterback right now in his own roster. Dak Prescott, MVP. Luke Walton, God, look at him at Golden State. Oh, stop.
I don't take this ejection as having anything to do with how good of a coach he is.
That's fine.
If anything, it's a coaching tactic.
Okay.
But here's his explanation for it.
I want to hear this.
I just felt like, I needed to stand up for my guys. I felt like there wasn't, there was what happened on the floor wasn't right. And, my only concern is our guys in the locker room and our team. And if I feel like something's not right, I'm going to stand up for my guys.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm okay with that.
Good voice.
He has a great voice.
No, honestly, he could do professional voice work.
He could also be a professional NBA coach, head coach. You didn't like that explanation? You're not cool with that?
I'm fine with it. I think he's very youthful.
There's nothing wrong with youth, is there?
It's too bad it's wasted on the young.
Oh, my goodness.
Winston Churchill, sorry.
Oh, thank you for that. Fran Tarkenton, he once said that he was not sold on Johnny Manziel, and now he's after another quarterback. Okay. He said he doesn't think that Jared Goff should have gone in the first round, and said, I'm sure he's a great kid, but he isn't very good at quarterback.
I can't judge him yet. I don't know. I can't judge him. Listen, why am I critical of Cam Newton? He's been in the league 6 years. I got a lot of stuff to look at.
A lot of tape to watch.
Like Carson Wentz, he was really good early. He's struggling now. I'll tell you something. I watched it on the Red Zone channel, but I watched Carson Wentz this weekend against Washington really closely, and he's struggling at times. Carson Wentz is so damn talented. Oh my God, he's got a good arm. He's got good feet. He's so athletic. Like when you watch Carson Wentz, you're like, I wish Jared Goff had that. Like, Carson Wentz is losing football games. Carson Wentz is filthy talented. My question about Jared Goff is he's going to have to win with his brain and arm because he doesn't have the feet. He's not thick. He's not going to push the ball way down the field. He has fewer ways to beat you. So when you give him a coach like Jeff Fisher who doesn't know offense, he's a dead duck. He needs Gruden bad. They better not butcher this and hire another defensive guy. They got to hire like Kyle Shanahan.
Okay. And finally, the NFL has announced, in addition to the schedule of events leading up to the Pro Bowl, It will hold a skills showdown on Thursday before the Pro Bowl, and it is going to include this: a relay race, a precision passing contest, and a challenge for quarterbacks and receivers to attempt as many passes as they can before time runs out, and also a game of dodgeball. This is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. Have you played dodgeball? It is a dangerous sport, and a lot of people get hurt.
I love the idea of an NFL skills challenge. I actually do.
Okay,
Years ago, they had this goofy thing where quarterbacks had to throw through a tire, and it was moving across the field. Goulet, you saw
Makes sense.
Yeah, with it had the paint on the ball, so when it hit the target, and leave a mark as to what quarterback
trick shot.
You couldn't take your eyes off it. It was. I remember Mark Brunell was doing it one. It was fascinating.
That makes complete sense.
It was better than the game.
It was absolutely was better than the game.
Challenge, but what does dodgeball have to do with your skills as a football player?
Oh, I'd love to see.
There are going to be so many injuries. There are dodgeball leagues around Los Angeles. People get really hurt.
Not pro athletes.
Yes, they do, and you have to move on your ankles in weird directions.
I'm telling you. Move on your ankles?
Yeah, you have to make quick changes. I know football.
On your ankles?
Oh, come on. I'm telling you, it's a dangerous sport.
Well, I couldn't coach you because, as you said earlier, don't raise your voice to me or I just zone you out.
I don't like to be yelled at. I think I would.
You know what? You need to be coached sometimes. Believe me.
You are just trying.
No, you
to
need to.
me today.
John, does she need to be coached?
What do I need to be coached on?
Well, I don't have time. We got guests to fill.
Right, because they have. I can't even. But I won't yell at you.
Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line
John,
News.
when's the last? John, I've worked with you for how many years?
Altogether, probably like 5 or 6.
I've yelled at Greg a couple times, but that's because it was our first year together. How many times
you haven't lit into me in quite a while. Yeah. I know what to avoid.
Yeah. I don't light into a lot of people.
You what?
Nothing. I'm not going to get into it.
I respond to it though. I'm good with it.
Yeah, so I'm good with you.
If you yelled at me even once, I probably would never listen to you again. I would lose so much respect.
Not
for
like
you.
You're listening much now. All right, let's go to a man who is as tied in as any college football reporter in America. And we bring him on regularly, and we're lucky to have him at Fox Sports. Bruce Feldman. All right. At Bruce Feldman, CFB. That stands for college football. All right. So let's just start with the elephant in the room, the Jim Harbaugh stuff. What do your sources say?
It's been all over the map, Colin.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to not believe it right now because he's only been at Michigan 2 years. We know how important that job he has said it is to him, and I believe that he thinks that. Okay. He's got a young family. Does he want to uproot them again? The other part of this to me is you are defined, and he knows this better than anybody because he's Mr. Michigan. You are defined by how you do against Ohio State. Could he really leave after all the talking he's done going 0-2? He's never beaten Ohio State. Do you leave at that point?
I don't think you do, and I think, frankly, I love Ann Arbor. It's the northern Austin, Texas to me. I think it's one of the great jobs in America. I really do. I think my wife's from Michigan. I love Michigan. I love the northern part of it. I love Ann Arbor. And Ohio State's a great job. Michigan is one of the top 5 jobs, period, in America, NFL or college. I agree. Does Jim Harbaugh, how about this question, Bruce? From all your sources, is Michigan his last coaching destination?
Well, I wouldn't go that far because, like I said, he's never been anywhere longer than 4 years. And at some point, I think Jim Harbaugh gets tired of the place and the place starts to get tired of him. But I don't think we're at that point now. I mean, just the idea that he would pull up the stakes. He's made such an effort into recruiting. I've heard rumblings from people that I trust who said, oh, yeah, he was contacted by people last year for NFL jobs, but he's still there. I think this is wishful thinking probably on some people's eyes that he would bail out of there now.
If he did, who would get the Michigan job? It's not a big field of Les Miles.
I don't know. I mean, obviously Les is out there. I mean, as you said, it's a really good job. Now, most of their 2 deep was loaded with a lot of seniors.
No question.
And that is an issue, but he's recruited very well. If you look, last year they recruited arguably the top defensive recruit in the country, Rashawn Gary. There's a lot of good young talent in there. My guess is they would not promote from within. I know people think highly of his coordinators, Tim Drevno on offense, Jed Fish, who also is the passing game coordinator. Obviously, on the other side, Don Brown does have head coaching experience, a defensive coordinator. But, I mean, again, I agree with you. It's a top 5 job. I think they could probably try to poach somebody else if it came to that. But I think we got a ways to go.
Yeah, I think Jim's going to stay there, and I hope he does for both of us who work at Fox, and we know have Big Ten games. So
he definitely has made it more interesting for all of us.
God, he's completely elevated the conference, and he's stealing SEC players from that footprint. All right, Lane Kiffin takes the Florida Atlantic University job. I read a story today. It may have been yours, maybe not. I think it was Dan Wolken. And he was saying that when schools around the country called on Kiffin, Tennessee and USC bashed him. What do we know about that? What do we know about Kiffin's rep?
I don't even think they needed to do that part of it. I think, and this is from what I'd heard late last week, when Lane Kiffin got passed over by Houston and they had promoted Major Applewhite from within, I think there was an element of that was, well, we don't know how the Texas high school coaches, which is very powerful for a job like Houston, how they would have meshed with Lane Kiffin. But I think it came back to, can we trust him? Do we feel like we can trust him to run a program? And I think Lane realized that. Beyond that, I think when USF, which is a really good job, which I think geographically made some sense for him. Unfortunately for him, Charlie Strong was sitting out there and as a prime fit.
Because he would have wanted that job because it's Tampa.
It's Tampa. He lived there. His wife is from there. A lot of roots there. He recruited both Mike Williams is from that area. He brought him out from USC. So he's recruited that area pretty well. But I think when he looked at it and goes, you know what, I'm not sure I can prove anything more to people as an offensive coordinator, whether I'm the offensive coordinator at Alabama, whether I'm the offensive coordinator at LSU or even UCLA. I'm going to have to show that I can be a Division I head coach on some level and prove that I can run a program for a couple of years where guys can trust me. And I think that's ultimately what it came down to.
What about, I'm going to throw a couple of names out there. Saban's done coaching. Like, he won't leave, right? He's 64. He's not going to leave.
And he's got a great situation. I mean, I don't think there's any place he could go where he could feel like they're as committed to winning and the way he wants it to be.
David Shaw, Stanford.
Another guy who's very comfortable where he's at. I could see the NFL trying to get him again, but I think he's very comfortable.
Kevin Sumlin.
In past, there's been interest with Kevin Sumlin to the NFL. I wouldn't think so this time, though.
You've got all sorts of coaching connections beyond college football. When you hear the John Gruden stuff, you used to work at our former employer. What do you make of the Gruden stuff?
I think he's the white whale. I mean, at one point in Miami, people thought they had a shot at him, and it's just, he's got a great deal that they've done for him money-wise. I mean, he is making a fortune for Monday Night Football and a lot of the other stuff that comes with it. The question I have, and I know that it came up a few years ago with Tennessee as well because there were some ties.
He was up. People mentioned his name.
But I think the question is, do we even know how good of a college coach he would be? I'm not surprised Jim Harbaugh is doing well at Michigan because he's done it. He did it, worked wonders at Stanford. John Gruden, we don't know any of that about. He's never really been a college coach, and it's a completely different animal. So just the idea that you would have to pay him $13 million. I mean, there's some people in the NFL who make that money. There's nobody in college who makes that money.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw Harbaugh's $9 million, I was actually shocked. Not because he's not worth it, but by the salary. Bruce Feldman joining us at Bruce Feldman CFB. So when you talk to various people, I made this argument earlier. In Hollywood, it used to be movies is what movie stars did, and then you look down at TV. And it used to be NFL jobs were the jobs, and you kind of look down at college. But now college is paying $7 million. Jim makes more than John.
You know who changed that?
Who?
Saban. I think Saban, when he came back, because he's a guy with NFL connection strong, obviously a Belichick guy, when he came back and got Alabama to the way they are and kind of lit a fuse in a program that had been obviously great for a long time, but then had backslid away and had probation issues and had been a mess. And he got them, and he kind of changed the dynamic because of, like I said, some of the things that he did at that program and got the commitment from the university to do that.
So he raised the bar for everybody.
And it's also, you see it in coordinators. He's also hired guys. For him taking on Lane Kiffin, when Lane Kiffin was essentially toxic and then winning, and I mean, that was a remarkable step. And I think that has changed. That's not to say that, some of these guys who are really successful, whether it's a Mike Tomlin or whatever, would jump into a college job, because you can make a lot more money in the NFL than some of these college jobs.
You know what I heard, Bruce, years ago from a guy? He said, listen, a lot of guys would like college. This is where Pete Carroll got frustrated. It's in the NFL, the coordinators make $700,000-$800,000 a year, and the pensions are terrific. In fact, coaching pensions are, on average, better than player pensions. Whereas in college, every assistant is looking to upgrade. Position coaches want to be coordinators. Coordinators want to be head coaches. And Pete, at the end, got tired of recruiting coaches. Forget players. Whereas in the NFL, his staff, he may lose one guy every other year, like a crucial guy. And so that is the one area where I can see, like a Harbaugh. If Jim kept losing every year a coordinator, like this Tim
Drebno.
Like, he's like hot. Like, he's going to get a head coaching
But he's
job.
still there. I mean, he got Don Brown. Jed Fish is still there. There's interest in those guys. I'll tell you the biggest area. I go to the NFL Combine every year, and you run into guys who used to work in college and now are NFL assistants somewhere.
What do they say?
The biggest thing they don't miss is they're on vacation in the summer with their wives or somewhere sitting by a pool, and they don't have to keep looking at their phone to find out that their starting defensive end got arrested in a bar fight, or some guy on their team got a DUI, or some kid who's on the recruiting board, hey, coach, I'm going to be in town, and I want to just swing by because I'm on an unofficial visit. When you're in the NFL, you don't have to worry about that stuff.
By the way, let's clear something up. I believe yelling is okay at people. Christine disagrees. Do you believe yelling's an effective way to make people better? Greg Popovich does.
No, I'm struggling with 2-year-olds now. It's our instinct. It doesn't work. I think the only ways you can yell at people, and it's considered okay, is if you're in the military or you're a coach. I think there's no way if you ever yelled at somebody in payroll, Colin would be brought up in HR.
That's exactly what I said.
You just can't treat other adults that way.
See what Tom Brady did last night? That's what I have to do at morning meetings.
Yeah, he's Tom Brady. No.
That's what
My head is going to explode today,
from
Colin.
now on.
Football's not a real paradigm for life.
No, it's not at all. You know what kind of stuff goes on in football that would never be okay here?
Yeah, discipline.
Yeah,
Yelling.
but Colin, if you were to take a transcript of every word that any coach, and I'm not talking about the biggest yellers or the guys who've been run out of the business, I'm talking about some of the nicest, quote-unquote, guys of things they have said in the heat of a game, people would be outraged by it.
Well, not if they have a thick skin.
I have extremely thick skin. I deal with you every day.
Bruce Feldman's amazing. We're back with Hunter Lunch next. Thanks, bud. When you need to be there, when you really need an interstate, the car battery auto techs prefer. Let one of the techs test your battery today. Outrageously dependable. Grabs this weekend at DraftKings.com. Got to have a $5 minimum deposit. DraftKings.com, code HERD. See their site for details. We call it Hunter Lunch. 7 games. I've got to get a majority right. 4 of 7. Within 1 point, let's not waste any time.
Come on! Colin's got a hunch.
Tell me you weren't thinking this too.
If he's less than 50%,
that is nothing.
We'll get lunch. It's hunch or lunch in the herd.
7 games, got to get 4 right. Within a point, let's start.
I just want to make it clear I want you to lose today.
Okay.
Badly.
Sure.
Okay. Rams at Seahawks.
Thursday night game.
God, Seattle.
And this line was gotten after Fisher was fired.
Stop!
Well, I'm just telling him it's up to date.
But Seattle's struggling offensively. I'll say Seattle minus 6.5. What?
So wrong.
That's 14.5.
Oh.
6.5. What are you watching?
Rams play the Seahawks tough.
I guess you're taking those 2 touchdowns in the hook then.
Wow.
I like the way this is going. Dolphins at Jets.
God, Matt Moore.
This is actually a Saturday night game, by the way.
You're giving me the tough ones because they have Matt.
That's the idea.
I would say Jets minus 1.5.
Jets 2.5 point underdogs at home.
Wow, Miami a backup.
I don't think Vegas thinks Matt Moore is as huge of a drop off.
Okay, fair enough. I'm 0 for 2.
Yep. Karma. Lions at Giants.
Karma. Lions. So New York's going to be favored, obviously. They are off a Cowboy win. It's not going to be a huge number. Detroit's been hot. Detroit played like garbage and won. I would say New York minus 4?
Nice. 4.5.
Yeah, that feels right.
Okay. Titans at Chiefs.
I actually like the Titans to win that game, I think. I don't know what the spread would be. Titans at Kansas City. Kansas City's going to be favored. It feels... I'll say it again. How about Kansas City -4?
Just missed it. It's actually 5.5.
Boy, that's a big number for Kansas City's offense. That's a lot of respect to, like, Tyreek Hill. He's giving them a pop offensively. God, I'm sucking today.
If you lose this one, you lose.
I know.
The whole game.
I've been playing the game for years.
You got to pull a cab.
I'll start
Where's
yelling.
your discipline in this game?
God,
you're really losing
you're
your
so
discipline.
sad.
You're so out there.
Sad.
49ers at Falcons.
Oh, crap. That's a fat number.
Is it?
Atlanta's a huge favorite. 40, Atlanta minus, God, this is a huge number. Atlanta's -12.
Go! Just missed it. 13.5.
So you lose. I got my wish.
Do you want to do the last two?
You just give me the last two.
Okay. Patriots at Broncos.
New England -4.
-3.
Okay.
Panthers at Redskins.
Monday night.
Washington -3.5.
4.5.
See, if you would have just done the order better.
No, you still would
I
have
always
lost.
go in order of the game.
The order doesn't matter. You still would have lost.
Yeah, but I would feel better about myself as a human instead of being.
That's not the goal today.
How many lunches do I?
A lot, and you didn't pay up on any.
By the way, in between the break, I already had my lunch. Delicious tuna fish sandwich.
I think we're going Mastro's dinner for the staff at this
I think
point.
that would be right because you've missed so many.
So
you take us to Mastros.
So you don't believe in any yelling ever?
I think in sports, I see that it makes sense, but that's because men are very different from women.
We're able to handle.
No, it's because you communicate via yelling.
I think it's very effective. Greg Popovich has won a lot of titles.
Yeah, and he coaches a lot of men.
Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, Jim Harbaugh.
I think if you get to the point of yelling, like in life outside of sports, you're not really thinking clearly.
Well, maybe if people would listen better.
No, when's the last time you listened to someone who was yelling at you? You tune them out. Or you start thinking about your rebuttal.
Man, my high school coaches were yellers. Oh, boy.
And how was your team?
Well, we made the playoffs one year, and then one year we weren't very good.
Okay.
But my look at Brady last night. This is what this all started from.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, by the way, I would say that's like a little bit of celebration.
No, I mean, he's got some celebration. You know, it's so funny, man. That guy is so intense. It's funny. My wife and I will talk about this all the time. Like, everybody's like, we got to get our kid into this school. It doesn't matter if your kid goes to Harvard. If they're not driven, you're just wasting money. Like, Tom Brady, I mean, the NFL, sports is a great example of it. The people that win, Nick Saban's not the smartest coach. Nick Saban wants it more. Look at Brady's intensity on the field. Like, Kobe Bryant would not leave the gym unless he could beat you at horse. Like, Michael Jordan wasn't the best ball handler. He wasn't a natural shooter. He got cut in high school. Jordan just wanted it more.
But at what age do you know if your kid's driven or not?
You know, let me tell you something. As a parent, you know really, really quickly your kids' habits. I'll tell you a story. When I had my daughter, she's 16, great kid. When we took a picture of her every month. She was, and I don't remember this, but we took a picture of her every month for the first couple of years. And then so when she was a couple of years old, we had like every month we saw her age, and we had a birthday party for her. And our friends knew our daughter. She was so organized, which she is now. At 2 years old, that like we asked everybody to come over at the party and just sign what you think she'll be doing as an adult. And they were all management positions. So by 2 years old, our daughter was so organized in her playroom, she was so responsible as a kid. By 2. And by the way, she has become this as an adult. You can depend on her. My son was squirrely right out of the womb. Was just goofier and that's what he's become. I'm just saying, as a parent, you can spot habits really quickly. The funny kid's funny. The confident kid's a confident. The aggressive kid, it's hard to teach aggressive. Like a little boy comes out and they're aggressive or they're not, or they're passive or they're not, or they're a helper or they're not. Like you can see it fast. I mean, my mom used to always say, she's like at 8 years old, you knew exactly what you were doing for life. Well, I got lucky. Like a lot of people do, a lot of people don't. But it's like, we always get our kids to the right school, get them doing this, get them doing that. Like in the end, after you and your wife have a glass of wine and create a kid, a lot of it from that point forward, you don't control. I mean, you just don't control as much as you think as a parent. As parents, we want to think, man, we really matter. If Tom Brady's parents, Tom could have 4 brothers and sisters. One of the things you learn as a parent, 3 of them could be lethargic, 2 could be intense. Your kids aren't the same.
No.
So if the parents really had influence, all your kids would be the same.